Hi, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Kalika and I make anti-MLM content here on YouTube. My video today is going to be actually me sharing a podcast that I did with my friend Brandi on her podcast, the Be Real Babe podcast. I recorded an interview with her sharing my story, but it's really more of a conversation of the two of us going back and forth because it turns out she had her own MLM experience as well. I originally met Brandi through like an online group coaching kind of mastermind program, one of those self-help courses. I know they're super mainstream today, but I was really into them and into personal development when I was deep in my MLM because I believed in the constant and never-ending coaching and improvement ideology that they teach you in those circles. And so I was taking a lot of courses like this, but I was definitely deep in my Hunbot days. She'll share, but she was, I think, building a photography business at that time, and we connected and we just resonated. I liked her as a person. But I actually did try to reach out to her and pitch her my MLM, which is so embarrassing, but it kind of came full circle because when I announced that I was out, that I was speaking out, and I said so on my Instagram for the first time, she actually messaged me because we'd stayed in touch and said she wanted to have me on her podcast and discuss all of this. And it was such a relief, honestly, every time that I can reconcile with somebody that was not even victim, but like I subjected to my MLM hun self. Like it feels so good when I can come back around and kind of redeem myself from that. So I was really happy to hear from her because I've always loved her personality and her energy. So we do chat. We do a lot of back and forth here. It's not just me sharing my story. She talks about her experience and her perspective as well too. This is, I believe, her first time coming out as anti-MLM and openly speaking about it on her podcast too. So I know that's a huge step. It can be really nerve-wracking. So definitely show her some love and support in the comments because I am super, super proud of her. I will share more about her and her podcast and how to connect with her in the description box below. But I am super excited for you guys to hear this interview. So without further ado, let's just get right into it.
All right, babes, it's time to get on to the show. And today with me in studio, I have a very special guest joining us from all the way from the Americas. I'd like to welcome Kalika to the studio. Hey, babe, how's it going?
Hey, it's so good. Thanks for having me. I'm so excited.
I'm so excited. I actually was going to go back and I think it's been like 5 years of online girl crushing, and since Go Team Academy, I think it
Yeah.
has been. Yeah,
I was
so
gonna
great.
actually ask you because
Yes.
I just remembered that that's where we met, and I was
Yep.
like, what were you doing in that course? Because I know what I was doing
Yes.
in that course.
Yes, I know, right? I thought it was honestly like I have opinions now of said individuals, but it was a very transformative course for me. It was the first like self-help course that I ever did. And it actually, the recording and the videos we had to do made me comfortable enough to actually launch this podcast and actually move out of Grand Prairie, Alberta to Kelowna, our dream city, get my dream job. Like
Oh, I
it
love
really
that.
opened, yeah, it really opened, and all the friendships, like the friendships I still have to this day from just girls that would be cheering you on in the group. So I
Mm-hmm.
think the premise of that and the whole thing was amazing. The follow up, not so great from what I heard, but the idea behind it and the sisterhood, quote unquote, that we all look for was definitely there and continues to this
Yeah,
day. But
that's
yeah,
great.
transformative. How was it for you? You feel the
It was
same?
really, I mean, it was really good for me. I was deep in taking a lot of courses like that at the
Fair.
time, I think.
Fair.
So it was like, yes, I got something, but a lot of that's like manufactured,
Cut and
like,
paste. Yeah, I know.
you know.
After I was
Um,
like,
yeah.
that I just got there, but
No,
what I got out of
totally.
it was great, right? But being aware for the next time, like
Yeah.
don't go broke
Yeah.
doing these self-help courses, which we'll talk about more as we go on, because I know that was
Mm-hmm.
something you mentioned, and I was like, yes, we need to talk about this. But yeah, it was amazing that I think all of us kind of were just maybe at that point of developing an online presence and trying to figure out what that was. And it
Yeah.
was a really great avenue and a safe space to go and do that and push yourself out of those boundaries because everybody else was, and it just felt it's very safe. And like, yeah, I've definitely taken, I actually have the certificate, I think right over here. I still kind of giggle about it because I'm such a different person, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
So before we kind of get into talking about MLMs and your experience and what you do now, can you give us a little bit about yourself, what you're doing now, where you're at, what you
Yeah,
like, what you love?
definitely. Yeah, so I am 33 years old right now. I live in Boulder, Colorado. I'm originally
Ooh.
from California, from the Bay Area, outside of San Francisco. So that's where I was born and raised. And right now, last year, I started a private event bartending company. So that's kind of the main thing that I'm focused on right now. I've been a bartender forever, probably over a decade already. So it's been a long enough time in the industry, and just ready to kind of do it for myself. We found like a niche here where people are having private events, especially after COVID,
Mhm.
um, and there's not really a service for that here. So we were like, let's go do this for ourselves.
Let's
Let's
do
build
that.
our own thing. Um,
Nice.
yeah, it's been fun. Our thing is bringing a premium craft bar to private events. And because we were just kind of underwhelmed by the bars at weddings and stuff. They're just
Oh,
sometimes nothing
yes.
to like write home about. And we're like, we could do
No.
this way better. So
Yes.
that's what we kind of set out to do. So
Love
it's
that.
called Team Bless Bartending, and it is yeah, just mostly based in Colorado. I mean, we travel a bit, but it's kind of hard to take that too
Yeah.
far, too far
Yeah.
from home. And then aside from that, I still bartend a couple days a week downtown in Boulder on busy event days at the bar that I used to be full time at. And I recently started a YouTube channel. Eventually gonna maybe think about monetizing it. Right now I'm not there yet, but
Fair.
it came from this MLM experience that I had. I was 7 years in, came out, when I really realized how strongly I felt about a lot of things. I decided I needed to make content for consumer awareness. So it's definitely a
Yeah.
passion project, a hobby for me right now. But I love it. It's so great. It's so
Yes.
much fun, and I love creating. I love recording, editing, and so those are my two main things right now that
I
I'm
love
focused
that.
on.
I love it.
And
I've been watching from afar and I was like, look at her go. She looks like she's having so
yeah,
much fun, like just glowing with what you're doing. Like you said, it's something you're already good at. Why not have your own actual business and build
yeah,
that for yourself where you get
yeah.
full control of everything? And I'm sure it's been a wild trip for you to see what it's like as a business owner in that sense for the last year versus the 7 years that you were, in the MLM probably space.
Hmm.
It's very different, I'm sure. And it's probably something that maybe opened your eyes a little bit more once you got into it, how different, in my opinion, that I think it is
Oh,
from
a
just my
hundred
personal
percent.
experience. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
and
amazing.
a lot of people will say that, like, and myself included, a lot of people will say that because when you're in an MLM, they tell you that you're an entrepreneur and they tell you that you're a
Yes.
business owner, and you realize that that's just simply not true. You don't have the decision making power that a business
Yeah,
owner or an entrepreneur would actually have. But they're just telling you that. But a lot of people will say that that was a great entry point to actually branching out and doing your own thing. And I will
totally.
agree. Yeah, I'll agree for myself personally. Like, it's way different. I think MLM is like playing businesswoman, where like when you actually run a business, you're actually running a business. But I don't think I would have had the idea or the confidence to go out and do that
Yeah.
on my own had I not been in that environment. So,
Absolutely. And it's a good time to look and being like knowing what you didn't want and what environments you don't want and the culture that you don't want to create. And then you see what's lacking and then you can create that for yourself and, do something you truly love while not really worrying about, I always worry about too. I don't monetize the podcast, for multiple reasons. I don't want to go out and get someone to sponsor us and then all of a sudden tell me what I can and cannot say.
mhm,
And, so sometimes you really have to just do it for you and the
mhm,
rest will fall into play. And I'm the same way. I love creating content. I think it's such a great energy and such good connections. You learn so much from individuals that you talk to and yourself. Like I've changed so much in the couple years we've podcasted. So completely relate to you. And guys, like today I was listening to the reasons why you felt that you were could have been a target for MLM. So and today I was like listening and I'm super busy at work and I actually stopped and rewind. It's like everything she says is gold. Like I have to listen. I can't just have her playing in the background today. So on my break, I was like, this is
I
so
love
good.
it.
But before we get into that, because I think that's really important to talk about, can we start like, where did you start your MLM? Like, how did that come into be in your life? Can we start at the kind of beginning there?
Yeah, yeah. So,
Cool.
I they really weren't on my radar. Like, I didn't really understand what they were, or had any interest in passing. Like maybe when I was 18, my stepmom had mentioned like, why don't you do that Mary Kay thing? And I was just kind of like, nah, I'm good, like, but
Old
I
lady
didn't,
makeup.
she's like, they give you a card. Like, it just didn't really, make sense
Yeah.
to me. But, what happened was I was 25 when I actually joined. I had taken some extra time to finish college, taken a few years off and stuff. So had just transferred. I was at a junior college, had just transferred to a university, and I was a little bit older than the people that I was in school with. Like I was 24 at the time when I transferred, and most people in my classes were like 18 to 20. And so
Yeah.
I didn't relate at that age. Like at my age now, 4 years doesn't make a difference. But at that age,
No,
it made
it
a
does.
much bigger difference.
Yes.
And I just felt like I didn't really relate to my peer group. So I was definitely kind of like looking for something, and they'll always talk about this in MLMs, and so that's why I feel like it's important to mention. I was kind of looking for some community of like people that like to do what I liked to do, and I saw it through a friend. I saw it through a friend of a friend. I knew both girls. One was my best friend, and if you're cool with me saying names on here, I'm just going to use
Oh
names
yeah,
because it's just
of
way
course.
clearer. So
Yeah,
my best friend, her name was Whitney, and so technically she was my sponsor, but she wasn't like the upline, you know what I mean? She wasn't like the recruiter. She was just the one that they got before they got me, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Been there.
so yeah. Yeah. So our mutual friend's name was Erin, and she was the one who recruited Whitney. And so and I fell for it just like the FOMO curiosity social media
Yes.
posts. Like that's what
Oh
it
God,
was.
it's the worst. It's the worst. It's like
And
kryptonite. Like, I
yeah,
want to be in. I want to be a part of this.
exactly. And you don't realize how compelling that can be.
Yes.
Just online, it's
Yeah.
you think it's like a middle school peer pressure type of thing, but like it's very real when we're adults too.
Yeah.
And it was a travel MLM, and she's like, I want to travel, and I'm going to travel with Whitney, and we're going to make money together. It's going to be so great. And I'm like, I want to go. Like,
Sign me up.
yeah,
I'd be so into that.
yeah,
Wow. That's a good
So
one.
that's
That would
how,
have
I
got
mean,
me too.
yeah, I looked it up online, and then obviously their videos aren't very like descriptive. There's just like a teaser video. And so
Big.
next time I saw her, I'm like, what are you doing? I want to do it with you. And I like literally asked to sign up.
Yeah, that's so, and that's what happens though. And I want to point out too, if I can, when you were at that age, because you were 33, so like 9 years ago, roughly,
Mhm.
right? So at that time too, I like that's when social media really just started coming out, and I don't think a lot of us at that time really understood that people could fake their life online. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I know that seems like such a simple thing to be like, duh, obviously anybody can fake anything, but I don't think any of us had the understanding of that concept like we do now. Like we see it and we're like, yeah, this is people's highlight reels. We know that, they're not going to share their fights with their spouses, or they're losing money. Like they're not going to come on and be like, join this MLM and I lost all this money. Like we're not going to see that as much.
Mhm.
But back then, I don't think we really understood that, because it was social media, but it wasn't really like that yet. So I
Mhm.
feel like that fakeness was hard to detect
Yeah.
back then. Like people are we didn't realize it was the highlight reels, and that there's some
Yeah.
darkness waiting
There's some
behind
darkness,
there.
and
A
there's
little bit.
some grifters, and there's a lot
Yeah.
of like I don't think we realize the amount of selling that happens on social media. Now it's clear as day, but
Yes.
I don't think we realized that in addition to just ads, like people, your friends were
Yeah.
trying to sell you
Yes.
something. Now, if you go on
Yes.
Facebook, you know when you see it, but back
Yeah,
then,
yeah,
no.
absolutely. And there's a line, right? Like I understand, like selling. You got to sell yourself, and your personal people are going to be your people. But there's also a line too, right? And I feel like in most places, that sales is really hard. They're just really in your face all the time. And so what I struggle with the most is the ingenuity, whatever. When people just come in your DMs and they're getting trickier now, but
Mhm.
they really made you feel, and this is where I got caught, like we were best friends and they understood my pain and they wanted to help me. And like you said, you're searching for that sisterhood and you weren't finding it within your peers, because fair enough, at that age, that's a big age gap. I struggle with that, like at work. I'm like, okay, you're cute, but I'm just,
Yeah.
you're 10 years younger than me, right? Like
Mhm.
it's whatever. I get it now. I'm like, okay, older ladies, I get what you used to say to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're just searching for that and searching for purpose. And then all of a sudden you see this and you're like, this looks like so much fun. And what do you mean I can make money? And it's like too good to be true. And you're like, and then people are like, well, don't doubt it. Don't doubt it, girl. You deserve this. Like, manifest it in. You called this in. And like, I hear all these buzzwords. And before, my words of affirmation is my love language. I'm like, and then
Yeah.
it's so dangerous. I said, same thing like you said, I am very vulnerable. If someone's like, I need you and we're going to do this, I'm like, to the top. No,
Yeah.
I lost money every time, guys. Every time. Every time.
Yeah, exactly.
And apparently that was me. My own fault, right? So
oh, yeah. It's all your fault. It's always your fault. You didn't work hard enough.
Yes. And you're right. I don't want to do this. And I'm glad I didn't work hard enough because I don't want to work. What they claim is hard work to me is just not what I'm willing to do. And I seen the couple arguments in your comments of people being like, well, why do some of the people make it to the top? And very perfect answer is because they make everybody below them have to do the work. And they're just very lucky on timing. You know, that's why you see, in my opinion, women that jump from different ones because they hear a new one and then they go over there because they're not making it where they want to because they're never going to. Mm-hmm. So, right. That's kind of what I kind of see. And then you kind of sit back and you're like, your stamp of approval is not very great. That's where I start to distrust then because I'm like, is this the best company or is the next one the best company or is this one like, or if they have multiple, I'm like, well, which supplement one do I take then?
Yeah.
You know, I struggle with some of those. So anyway, so you got into it, you're in school and your friend, you're having FOMO, you're traveling. And then how's that going? Is it good? You're making bank or you're like, what the fuck?
Well, I joined and it was like January and one of the big conventions. So MLMs will have these big conventions because that's how, I mean, and we could start drawing the cult parallels from here, but those events where they get you alone for a couple of days is really where they start to instill their ideologies and things like that in you. And you're surrounded by people that believe the same thing. You don't really have time to like critically think about it. And so just like a cult, like they'll tell you, you need to get to the next big event. You need to get to the next big event. So as soon as you sign up, like, even though I technically just signed up at the beginning to travel with my best friend, and sure, if I could make some money on the side, why not? But I wasn't at that point signing up for an income opportunity, but they're very quickly getting you to, well, if you want to take this seriously, you should get to the next event. So it was 3 weeks away. And so they wasted no time in trying to talk me into going to, where was it? I tried to remember. It was Louisville, Kentucky. So again, I'm coming from California, right? That's not close by. No. I'm about to start school. It's like the first day of my new semester. And they're trying to talk me into skipping that Friday and then going to Louisville. And I kind of get strong-armed on the phone by my uplines. So they do this 3-way call thing where they kind of get on the phone, don't tell you somebody else is on the phone. And then they like hard sell you, right? And that person can hard sell you because they don't have a personal attachment to you. And so that's what kind of happened. It was so already. Sorry, I was feeling it.
Yeah, right. Day one, like right away. It just makes me so sad too, because I know we're all in that space where it's like, you want to believe the best in people. And then you start doubting yourself because you're like, these people, like you said, you're surrounded by it. And anybody that's been to a concert or an event, whether that's, an MLM one or anyone with the speakers, because they always get those, and we'll talk about that in a bit, those, gurus that use buzzwords and they get you so amped up and they have good energy. I get that. I have good energy, man. I used to move people on trampolines. Like I get what it's like to move energy in a crowd, but there's power that comes with that. And I feel like some of these people use that very negatively, and they use, like you said, these words just like cults. Like it's the same thing with like Scientology. You can compare it right to that. Like they bring you to these events and you have to buy the next level of education to get yourself up to meet Xenu, this magical creature alien thing. Like it sounds crazy, but it's legitimately what they do. And it's the same thing. Like when we dived into Scientology, I was like, shit, all this self-help stuff. And I was like, this is very like, sorry, this is very MLM like I see some Avon girls doing the same thing here. Like, not to be a bitch. Well, to be a bitch. That's fine. I'm fine.
It was a huge awakening for me too, because I loved the self-help stuff. I studied the brain in college. So I ate it up. I mean, and it still is like really, it does make you feel good. But like the thing to understand there is beyond that, it doesn't really do much besides make you feel good in the moment. So the motivation you get in the moment is great. And the basic personal development skills that you learn are great. Like, sure, learn how to talk to people and learn how to sell yourself and, fix your toxicness, if you have any toxic traits. But beyond that, there's not really too much substance, but when I was in, I ate it up. I went to every single conference.
Yes.
They sold me on going, and I'm a very, they like to call it like personality colors green, but I'm like a logical, analytical type of person. They make you do these personality tests. And so they spoke to that. They were like, well, if you really want to make money with this, even if you don't yet, you might eventually. So why not get to training to figure out how to do it, you know? And that's a logical argument, but you don't really realize all the stuff that's going into those events that is really brainwashing you, and it isn't really training you on anything. And so,
it's surface level. It's like a Band-Aid almost, right? It's not really healing the wound. It's not really telling you to do the shadow work. It's toxic positivity in a sense where it's like, you can't just say affirmations and meditate and everything's going to be kosher, y'all. Like it's a very like, a very, three-dimensional. There's lots of pieces to healing, and you get, it's like a dopamine hit because you just get that energy and it just brings you back. And that's where they probably get you, where that energy, you hear those words and immediately your brain is programmed to bring those endorphins in when you were alive in that moment. Like they're saying those buzzwords like Rachel Hollis.
Oh gosh.
I've had beef with her long before all this came out, but she was one of those people where I'm just like, you are touting all of this, but you don't know what you're talking about. But so many people are like, she's amazing. I'm like, y'all, she's a fraud. Like, not to be that way. Sorry, don't sue me. But like, my opinion, personal opinion,
right?
They were selling marriage stuff while they were divorced. Like, what?
Yeah, and that's a common theme.
For it.
Yep. And all those gurus that, I mean, there's a few, and I think it was Nicole Arbor because I loved her, and that's why I was following her, and that's why I got into Go Team Academy. But she talked about like Jay Shetty and how he was plagiarizing a lot of information and stuff like that. And then you start to realize that as social media came out and like content copyrights and things like that didn't really exist, or there weren't laws around it, a lot of these people are just parroting around the same self-help quotes. They're very surface level. They're very just platitudes that make you feel good, but they're out of context, and you don't really realize how out of touch they are too, because they don't take anything into consideration that like is socioeconomic status or hardship or disability or anything like that. And you don't, and on top of that, they're very whitewashed. I would say those phrases are really only going to serve a white male.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Because everybody else has more cards stacked against them than just work hard and you'll see some results.
It's exhausting, right? Like, it's just putting up these standards that they don't, and nobody can achieve, like even at all, at any point, I don't think, right? And it's just like, it's almost like that's its intention, is to always make you feel no matter where you are, you could be rich, you could have the most people on your downline, you could have the best thing, but it's still never going to be enough, because how on earth would they keep you hooked to it? Right? Like if you had a satisfactory level that once you hit there, that was great. If they didn't like dangle the carrot to be like, hey, come up higher. Like, what I could just see them like, I don't know. It's just a selfish greed thing. I think people just keep wanting to go higher and higher in that sense, and don't get kind of blinded by what they're doing, because they're just like, I'm being so successful and this is success. But it's like, that's what upset me, is all the women that I hear that are anti-MLM that have come out and been like, but these are all the things that happen, and especially the girls exposing it. I don't think a lot of people fully know what goes on in like those private calls and stuff like that. And then you had some content creators going into there and sharing these screen records of, women at Beachbody, like shaming women's bodies and like work harder, and single moms. And it's like, and what started my beef is when they started coming after corporate jobs. Like, it's fine to go and do whatever you want. That's all good. But like, some people like it. I love my corporate job. I work in cannabis. Like, I'm very blessed. Like, I have a fun job. Like, I don't get mad about it. And the arguments they come, well, I don't have to work 9 to 5. I'm like, well, I don't have to work after 3 o'clock at 3:30, and I'm done for the night. I don't have to sell myself. I don't have to answer. I don't have to be constantly on. Like, there's pros and cons to both. But I don't shame people to get out of MLMs to come over to the corporate world, but that's definitely not what happens. It's very much using women that are in corporate and doing that stuff to being like, making us feel like we're less than because we're not going out here being entrepreneur boss babes. And it's like, but not to point this out, but there's a corporation that runs everything that you don't run. So people like me need to exist. Sorry.
Yeah. And you don't even realize that they're planting those ideas. Like these are some of the ideas that are planted in you at training. So you think that you're going for business training, but what they're really doing is telling you to put your 9 to 5 job on the back burner and this go all in on this, and that's what you do on the side, and that idea would never exist in your brain before they put it there,
No.
or
Yeah,
the same thing
totally.
about you want to climb the pyramid and be at the top. Like I said, I signed up not to make a bunch of money. I signed up to go on vacation with my best friend, and cool, if I could make some money, awesome. But then if you go to training, then you realize that they're talking about, well, if the real way to make money here is you got to recruit, and you got to recruit big, and you got to recruit hundreds of people. And suddenly they're planting this idea in you that you want to be at the top and you want to be on stage. Like there's this whole obsession with being on stage and MLMs and being a trainer. And I'm like, I never wanted to do that before. But then those things are like instilled in you throughout this whole brainwashing process.
That's fair. And it's like almost like a group mentality, right? Because everybody around there wants it. You're
Mm-hmm.
in there, you're like, well, I want it. Like, yeah, right. And if they do a good job, I feel like, of helping you or whatever, alienate yourself kind of from people that maybe disagree with that. So you're kind of stuck in this echo chamber where no one is really gonna say anything to you. And even if they do, this team has like all the answers of why they're wrong. And then
Mm-hmm.
you sit back and you look and you go, well, these people are helping me because that's what I like, what they're saying, that's what they're all saying, and this one person is saying that they're not. But this collective, like, this person's got to be wrong, until you start whatever. There's always that awakening moment that you see, that you're like, okay, have I been screwed here? And that's kind of where I was at with like Nicole Arbor and the Go team. I know a lot of girls like kind of felt that way, of just like just their after experiences of, in the moment there was lots of connection and everything was good, but soon it was over, it was like nobody existed anymore, which is totally fine. That's all good. But that wasn't the message that was relayed. It was like, we're always going to be here. But it's like,
Mm-hmm.
no, as soon as that was over, it was cut and dry, done. I'm so grateful for it. But then after, like you said, once I started diving deeper into my spiritual journey and seeing that majority of these spiritual healers or guides or whatever are saying the same thing. So then it's like, okay, so I could have just Googled that. Fuck. Just kidding. Not really, because it would have made the connections. But yeah, you just kind of like lose a little bit of trust in that. And you're like, the experience was still amazing. I won't take it away. But
Yeah.
now I'm more apt to be like, do I need to go to this self-healing course, or could I possibly read a book
Yeah.
instead, just to
Yeah.
myself, or talk to my friends, go to a therapist?
Yeah, I mean, I'm of the mind that a professional or yourself or free resources can give you 98% of the answers that we're looking for, that I paid for in the past. And when it comes to MLMs and those trainings, and yeah, 100%, the group dynamic is a huge part of
Mm-hmm.
influencing you. Like all the brainwashing isn't directly necessarily coming from the top, it's coming from the group. It's like trying to fit in with, if everyone else is excited, I should be excited about this. If everyone else
Yeah.
gets it, why don't I get it? There must be something wrong with me,
Yeah.
and they also prime you with, like, they prime all the objections you may have before you get them. So the second you sign up, they're like, don't go tell everybody about this. Don't word vomit on him. You got to make sure that don't tell them everything until you can show them everything. So then you already feel isolated. Like, yes, you may go home to your family, but they're telling you literally not to talk to your family about it. Or if they don't get it, they're a hater and they just don't want to see you succeed. So then the second they're like, oh, you're in a pyramid scheme, honey, I'm sorry, then you're automatically defaulting to what the group told you.
Yeah, 100%. And you hear that because you hear the responses. And I kind of laugh when I started figuring out like how media does that, right? And you just turn on a channel and all these channels say the same thing, right? And then all of a sudden you hear that same answer all the time. And I'm like, why? I'm like, this is such a copy and paste answer.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and then it's always a deflection, like, oh, well, you're a part of a pyramid. Like, but no, because guess what? No matter how hard I work, that doesn't change my boss's wage. Like,
Mm-hmm.
he gets paid a wage. He doesn't get more successful the harder. Like, yes, in theory, all of us working hard, we make more money. But my bosses don't directly make more per paycheck or per month dependent on my hard work. So
Yeah.
I don't get that pressure of working hard because their finances and their income depends on my hard work. Is the whole company depends on me doing a good job. So we all make money, myself
Mm-hmm.
included. So I
Yeah.
always kind of giggled at that. I'm like, yeah, but it doesn't get funneled up. Like, we all know what our set salaries are. And like, yeah, it sucks. I can't make more money because I have a salary, but I also have a salary. So I know I will also be getting the same paycheck every 2 weeks. I don't have to stress if I've had an off week or something happens. I'm still getting paid the same. I didn't have to sell myself out there. And so
Mm-hmm.
I always kind of giggle at the same, like you said, they're already priming you with that. And you
Mm-hmm.
don't realize that. And I think so many women I've heard say, I didn't want to be in this for the business. I just like the product. I just wanted to get it cheap. I wanted to have a sisterhood. I felt alone, like I find a lot of women are army wives that are in the States and they're very alone and they move because they move around. I think you mentioned this. Very vulnerable people are
Mm-hmm.
those that are, alienated already just by their environment. And it
Yeah.
sucks that they're like, ooh, they're like, no. And then you see
It's
someone
so
post and you're
sad.
like, I just got introduced to this business opportunity. I'm like, fuck.
Another one
No.
bites the dust.
Yeah, I'm like, okay,
No.
I know this person's gonna start unfollowing me on Instagram once they, kind of click that I am not for this as much. And I'm not, it's not that I'm not for it. I just wish women were more informed
Yeah.
about what it actually is. And I
Yeah.
feel like that doesn't happen. Like you said, like, let's talk about the vehicles. Can we talk about the vehicles for a second? So we talk about Mary Kay, and that was always the big deal, right? You get Mary
Yeah.
Kay and you get a car. And then I learned that you, in fact, for most part, from my understanding, is you don't get a car, you get a car leased out in your name. And if you hit that rank every single month, then they pay by your hard work that payment. But if you don't hit that rank, isn't that payment like on you? Is that
Mm-hmm.
true?
Now, I don't specifically Mary Kay. I don't know. I think Mary Kay is like the exception.
Probably.
But because they've been around forever, and I think their car program is structured a little bit differently. But
Fair.
at least the one that I was in the travel company was called World Ventures. It no longer
Okay.
exists anymore. There
Thank
are a
God.
couple offshoots of it because it went bankrupt. And as these do, they just spawn new pyramid schemes. So
Yeah.
these
Yeah.
top reps just go on to start their own companies.
Yeah.
So the way Dream Trips worked was it was a car bonus. And yes, exactly right. So when you hit a certain rank, they say you qualify to go get this car. You have to get it in a specific color, and I think for our company it was silver or whatever. But they have specifications about what color it should be, whether you put like decals on it or whatever, to represent your company. So this is more advertising for them. You're putting it on a vehicle that you're leasing, but this is more
Yeah.
advertising for them. And yeah, they're running your credit. You're putting down whatever payment, or the lease is in your name. And if you continue to hit that rank, they'll be like, oh, we'll give you, depending on what tier you're at or whatever, they'll give you a $500 car bonus or an $800 car bonus. But, you know, the thing is, in MLMs, most people are not making that much money. And even if you are making that much money, it's 1099 income. So it doesn't look as stable when you go in for a lease as it would as if you had a salary, right? So people don't necessarily generally get the best interest rates on these. Usually people are stretching their means to even get the car in the first place. And so they're stretching their means. Usually their payment will exceed that car payment anyway. So like say you're getting the $500 car bonus, your payment might be $600. So you're still
Yeah.
covering that extra whatever.
And then insurance, gas, like,
yep, all of it. And then
all of that.
if you lose your rank, you're not going to get that check for the month. So then that 5, 6, however many dollar payment is on you. And so 100% that car is in your name. They're just saying, congratulations, you hit a rank and now you can go buy this car and put our logo on it, essentially.
Yes. Yes.
But the point of it is to make the lifestyle look good. That's all the MLMs are really selling. They're selling a lifestyle and they're collecting people. They're selling an unattainable dream for most people. And that's why that's why it's so problematic. What they're selling
100%.
most people is not what is attainable for most people.
Nope.
And the car is not a company car. They're not paying for it. I mean, if you have a company car, you realize the company pays for everything.
Literally everything. Gas, insurance,
Everything.
payments, maintenance, everything. That's why it's like I struggle, and this is my biggest argument. It's like, and I get really sad because as soon as I see someone saying, oh, I got a car, in my heart I'm like, I bet you I fully understand what that must feel like to want to hit that, especially in that space. Like I completely empathize with that person and working so hard to get to that. But the problem is, like you said, it's like not attainable. It's like when people do crazy fad diets, it's like most of the time that's not sustainable, but people just get so like, I heard someone call it the microwave generation, where it's like everything is like instant. And, so it's like I can understand like wanting to get that as soon as possible. And like you said, selling that on the lifestyle to bring more people in. Because if they're like, oh, she can do it and she can get a car, then I can do it. And that's what she's telling you. You can do this too if you just join me. And it just like, but it's just a hook. And then like, that's what's for me. It was like, I thought this girl's like going to be my best friend. Maybe silly. It was online, but we clicked so well. We were texting, we are phone calling. It was about, it was Hempworks, the CBD one. And so obviously, being in Canada and they were legalizing it, they were like, no, 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 you're not doing this in Canada anymore, because they were about to legalize all of cannabis. So didn't make sense. Like that now is like import laws massively, which soon is going to hopefully be retracted. So we'll be able to import to the States. But anyways, immediate cutoff, immediate. Like no return to text, no nothing. I'm like, what should I do? Nothing. And it's actually funny. They actually revived the group not that long ago of the like leaders of it. They're like, we're still here. We're working through legislation. Like, how's everybody doing? And I'm like, that was like 5 years ago. What are you doing? Like, let it go.
But yeah, like the whole company or just like her team?
Just the team. Yeah. Just the whole, I don't think the whole company, I think it must've changed names. I'm not sure, but it was like this rock star group. And I think it did. I just kind of forgot about it, to be honest. And it popped up the other day and I was like, holy fuck, I forgot I was even in this group. And I kind of looked at it and I was like, it's all the same stuff. I was like, I got to get out of here. I got to get out. I got to get out. This is making me, but she like sent me a card. She sent me like best friend necklaces. And I was just like, at the time looking for a friend. And she totally got me. And I like, it wasn't like it was crazy amount of money. And it never was really about the money. It was more like, I thought that I had a good friend and we were going to do something and we were going to help heal people with CBD. And I just felt so stupid, and I think that's what a lot of women probably can relate to when it comes to that, and why so many people are sour. It's because we've had that. And if the people that are in it right now aren't going to acknowledge that and the extreme and just gaslight everyone, that's my fucking problem. Just because it's not your experience or you don't want to admit it, that's your experience, that doesn't mean it didn't happen to other women. So this coming after people speaking out about their experiences, I'm just not for it. And I don't think it's fair. And I'm sure you get some comments, but I would imagine you probably get more comments that are for what you're doing.
I've actually, I've gotten mostly positive feedback. I was a little nervous to start speaking out, honestly, because obviously there's some pushback. And of course now, like I've been out for probably about a year now, or coming up on a year officially, but I have a lot more confidence behind this since I've been creating content. But before I started speaking out, I was so scared to do it because the way MLMers come after you. And that in itself is a red flag. Like if someone like the bar that I work at, if someone's like, I hate that place, I'd be like, okay, cool. You know what I mean? Like, I don't care. You can hate, you can hate my, like that business. Sure. But because their identity is so attached to the whole industry, MLMers will come after you. And
I know. I have to always like preface that I like every time. And that's why I said I wanted to have someone on like you that actually lived and breathed it and, is creating content now. And like I said, guys, what was your channel's name again?
I forgot to mention. It's just my full name. So Kalika Kanatkar, on YouTube and on Instagram. Those are like where I'm mostly active, and I'll post some anti-MLM stuff on my Instagram stories. But mostly on my YouTube is where I'm like really trying to concentrate it. My Instagram is more like personal. But that's my username across all my social media.
That's perfect. Yeah. So like, I want you guys to go and listen because again, it's very well done, very well edited stuff. Not like me that I just let everything go and I don't edit everything. It's very like important, good. Like I said, I was like listening. I was like, damn, I need to listen to what she said. Like, it's so good because you've lived it, you've breathed it, you've been out of it. And I think that that's how you heal in a sense too from it, is speaking out. And once you have that power, it no longer has the power. And it's different for everybody in their journey when they decide to speak out. Everyone has a different awakening from being rocked by like the medical industry or, school, any sort of like systematic thing. Everybody kind of has their own moment where they're like, nothing is what I think it is. What the fuck? When was that moment for you? So you did it for 7 years. You've been out for a year. You kind of seen this stuff at the beginning, but again, we just like sometimes with bad boyfriends, we just like ignore the red flags. Like, he'll get better, right? Like I'm being silly. They're telling me I'm being silly. When did you kind of have your, okay, something ain't right here?
Yeah. To be fair, I feel like these things, they always stand out to you from the very beginning. Like the red flags, like I guess they're there. You just don't really pay too much attention to them, like being pushed into that first.
Training.
first training call, or like when they started bringing up religion at these business conferences, or when they start saying go do something super like uncomfortable that like in the name of growth and pushing yourself out of your comfort zone, like go reach out to people and pitch them, or like just very like, and I'm an introvert, you know,
Same.
I don't like just go put myself out there in social situations. So again, it was like, well, you got to do that if you want to be successful. But I'm like, some things just don't sit right with me, and I crossed a boundary with myself. They're nothing crazy, but like those would be like little things, and I wouldn't necessarily ignore them, but you start to collect them kind of like in the back of your mind, you know.
Yeah. Little
The company.
pins.
Mm-hmm,
You're like,
exactly.
okay, hold on.
Hold on, I have like 500 pins back there.
Yeah,
What's going
yeah.
on?
What's going on in my back? Like, you gotta see the chiropractor. What's going on?
The company that I was in was failing and nobody was telling me. So there was a lot of red flags. So I was good at selling memberships, never really a great recruiter, which I'm so grateful for. But as a result, I was at the lower levels of the pyramid. And so they control the way information flows down. So I didn't really get the full picture of what was going on. The company had so many issues, like they had trouble paying their reps, trouble paying their vendors, lots of different lawsuits for people leaving, like all sorts of stuff that they just cover up. And they're bleeding money. They're spending way more money. It was mismanaged. And this was prior to COVID. And then you take a travel company into COVID and it was literally just going under.
Done.
Yeah. But they were not telling the front line, because the only reason MLMs can continue to grow is if there's new recruits coming in at the bottom. So they can't let any problems hit the front line. So things were like not adding up for sure. Like I was working my butt off. This is how I started getting into paying for training, paying for courses, paying for coaching, because I bought the idea that I just have to work harder. And if I'm not getting the results, I need to work harder. So I was just getting more and more brainwashed. And then this company literally fell apart. They just said, oh, you're merging with Secret Direct, who spells skincare, and World Ventures is filing Chapter 11 bankruptcy. And then suddenly there's lawsuits between the top leaders, and there's reboots of Dream Trips, and all these things are happening. And so all of that put a really bad taste in my mouth. But I still believed. I still believed in the industry. I just thought I was at that phase of, yeah, some network marketers suck. Yeah, some companies suck. But because this is my own business, I can do it different. I can do it better, you know? Or maybe I'm not in the right place. So I set out to like find another company, or like, I didn't jump right into something, but I set out to like, I still believed in the opportunity. So I was like phased out, but I wasn't completely out. So I was still still paying my memberships, still, you know, making monthly purchases to stay active, whatever. And now I'm in a skincare company. So I'm like trying to navigate what that is, right? During a pandemic. I studied like psychology. I studied cognitive science in school. So I've always passionate about mental health and making mental health information mainstream for people. Yeah. And so I'm like, okay, maybe this is where I branch out and just start creating content about mental health. Yeah. I got recruited by a mental wellness MLM company. It's called Amare Global. If you guys come across it, it's awful.
Okay. So that is fantastic news. I mean, it's not. I'm so sorry. Okay, I'm so fucking glad you said it was Amare Global. I have such beef. Okay, so I found them obviously after, because I've been at an NTM, not because I called anti-vax and anti-mandate for so long. I truly don't love that. But when it comes to this, I am, because I don't think in any situation this model and this structure is good for anybody. I think network marketing and having people do their own thing and work for a company, I think that's great. Salesmen, I think that's great. This pyramid model, it doesn't work, and it has trapped a lot of people in our country, because I mean, you guys are suffering too, but we're run by a clown. And unfortunately, inflation's so bad and everyone is being forced. People are getting laid off left, right, and center. And these people are taking advantage of that, and they're fearing them that, and they're telling them that they need to do this to be sovereign, and that they don't have to worry about government control, because there's freedom in these companies. And it upsets me so much because some of them, and this is a story I don't know if I've shared, but I actually had a girl from Arbonne tell me, so I have infertility, I can't have babies, and I actually had a girl from Arbonne tell me that if I just take some of the greens, that should
Stop.
reverse my infertility. Yeah. And I was like, I like, because of who I am now and how this has been a long time I've known about this, it was like it rolled off my shoulders a lot easier. But right there is when I was like, okay, I'm done being nice about this, because like you said, I don't believe people that say this stuff mean that. I believe that they're truly brainwashed to try every single angle, and they're believing that by saying that they're actually helping,
Mm-hmm.
and they're not. And it
Mm-hmm.
just, and so anyways, it's a more global same thing. I'm seeing a lot of people be like using buzzwords like gut brain axis and, your second brain, and like all of those things may be true, but just taking a juice just from someone that's been in the fitness industry too, and through my own journeys, that there's no fucking way in hell that is curing your anxiety and your depression. It
Mm-hmm.
might give you a temporary woohoo, but I would like to really see the science behind that. So like, I'm glad anyways. So you
Yeah.
came into that one, and how is that? Sorry. I
I never really
sidetracked.
built it. I just kind of like, again, I was posting content and hashtagging mental wellness coach before heard about the mental wellness company, and also realized how crazy the coaching industry is. And I'm like, I don't even want to call myself a coach anymore because it's so wild, and we'll get into
It's
that
been
later.
taken.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been taken,
Um,
hijacked.
but yeah, I got like recruited, and I told her my story. I'm like, I believe in the industry, but I'm in this company, and I just have a bad taste in my mouth. And, she was very supportive, and we probably stayed connected on social media for like a year. And then again, I did the same thing where I was like, oh, I think I might be ready or whatever. But then I wanted to first try the products, and then I did. And then they got me in on oh, we'll waive the rep fee if you want to just join to be the rep, and then I like started getting into more of like the businessy training, but I never shared it because I got into the point where I already had a bad taste in my mouth. I started getting on some of their mastermind calls, and they're just talking about, okay, so Amari Global, they sell supplements for adults and children, which don't even get me started about the fact that they sell children's supplements. Yeah, and they're not the only company, but they basically say that they have nootropic, and it's just like, I don't care if it helps or not. Your kids don't need medication. They're just being kids. Like they're just being kids. They don't need
Yes.
medication yet. And that's the reason that so many things aren't diagnosed when they're children, even ADHD. I don't care. People jump to conclusions and
I
about
agree.
ADHD all the time. So I don't care if you're giving them a medicine or if you're giving them a happy juice,
Supplement.
but
Yeah.
like either way, like I think people jump to conclusions about that. And the medical claims are crazy with this company, from saying that they can cure your anxiety, your depression, your stress, your bad mood, all these things. And again, I
Your
studied the
sex
brain. Like,
drive.
oh yeah, that's the new thing. All these companies are getting into like hormonal stuff right now, and I'm like,
Yep.
um, but yeah,
Because it's
crazy.
trending, right?
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
trending. Like people are
yeah.
having problems with their hormones. Infertility is at a high rate. Sterilization, like there's a lot of men that are becoming sterile. It's like it's like they jump on whatever the biggest problem is and offer this solution with absolutely nothing being backed up to
Mm-hmm.
support that thing. It's like, oh really? I just have to take this and then I'll have my sex drive back. It's not because my hormones are crashed from being depleted from them for being on birth control for 15 years. I just have to take this. Like it just
Yeah,
upsets me because I was like, if my problems had that easy of a solution,
right.
I would fucking hope that I would have figured that out by now at 37 years old. Like, come on.
Yeah.
Anyways, sorry. Continue.
No, you're fine. But I just started getting on these calls and hearing like women who were like foster moms saying that like the products were calming the kids down. I'm like, this is just weird. I didn't really resonate. And I was like, I'm not sharing this, like, because they were basically trying to pitch me like, hey, if you're already creating mental wellness content and you're already coaching people on this stuff, maybe just offer this in. And at first, like, that's kind of like how I thought. I was like, if I can get behind supplements that I can actually get behind, I wouldn't mind suggesting them to people.
Totally.
Um, but yeah, it's problematic. All of their supplements are proprietary blends. And so the thing about proprietary blends is you don't know how much of what is in there. And so then they're saying that they are clinically proven. They're usually providing studies on the actual nutrients themselves, but that's not clinically proving that your product in its compilation is doing anything. And so this is across the entire industry. They all
I
do
was gonna
this.
say, didn't Young Living kind of get in shit too about their like proprietary blends for essential oils, and it's turned out like they were just complete. I mean, that whole thing is like, that needs to be a whole episode in itself, Young
Oh,
Living
yeah. Yeah.
and Gary Young and all that kind of stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
like, didn't he get busted for that? And then like, that's the whole thing about proprietary blends. Like you said, no one can know. And even these women that go to sue to be like, hey, show me your ingredients so I can show that this is why I've reacted. They're like, oh, we can. It's proprietary, it's secret. We can't share that because that's our personal information. And it's like, but but so how are you saying this is safe? Like, how are we, like I said, there's no informed consent there. And it's all
Mm-hmm.
buzzwords. And there's this new one out. I think it's called like Tragnat. Maybe it's not a new one. Someone around like, and it's just this other thing where it's like at the bottom it says it's not been tested, not been approved by the
Mm-hmm.
FDA. Not that I think that FDA means fuck all, but
Right.
like there's nothing. But yet on the top it's like all these claims. And you're like, is no one reading the fine print? How are we
Yeah.
allowed to say these things?
And you're not. I mean, I'm editing. So Secret, I'm editing a video on Secret right now. Then I
Yeah.
basically take a 1.5 hour training and break it apart. So that's why my video is so freaking long. But
Yes.
they're this has been around forever. Like I break down what a health or and what an income claim is, and you can look this up.
Mm-hmm.
Tina.org is a great resource, Truth in Advertising. But you can break down everything they say they're really not supposed to say. Like treating and curing anything, of course, but even words like financial freedom, even they're not even supposed to use that word, and
Nope.
it's so
Nope.
commonly used.
It
And
is.
this goes all the way back to the days of Amway. Like the supplement industry has not been ever regulated, which is why so many companies have jumped to it. Supplements are
Yeah.
still not regulated. They weren't in 1920, and that's what Carl Renborg, the guy who started Neutralite, did was making just random supplements in his kitchen or whatever warehouse space he could rent and saying that they
Yeah.
cured basically everything. Like this has been
Yeah.
happening for 100 years now. Like
Yeah.
almost a
It's not
hundred
alt.
years. And they all do this, and every company's modeled after that. And so the health
Yeah.
claims are just another example of how everything is copy and paste, because they
Yes.
basically decided to create this pay plan where themselves at the top would be making a bunch of money off of a bunch of other
Yes.
people.
And that's a big thing I like to talk about too, this copy and paste thing. And I want to say that I don't think that that's MLM specific. I
Mm-hmm.
think it probably is very much most there, but I have online coaches, like you said, like talking about online coaches and these spiritual coaches and people that I look up to. There's like some people that I follow, especially in Canada, that are, let's say, like freedom fighters and speaking the truth. And then I go to talk to them, and it's just like, again, a like, oh, well, do you want to sign up for my course? And da 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 da. And it's like, I get it. We got to sell ourselves, but like, it just makes me sad. Like I said, you just wait a couple days from something to follow you. You go to their page, you see that they're an entrepreneur, and I literally will count on my days. It's almost like a game I play to when I'm going to get like, oh, it's so great to connect. Or, my favorite one is where people will have like a poll and they'll ask questions, and then you'll like just be nice and you're like, oh, I'll help you. And then they use that to start a conversation with you. And it's like, it's almost, I think someone said a comment on your thing that's almost like they ask you your why and why you're doing these things to then use that almost against you to motivate you to work harder. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's such a fucked up tactic. When I read that today, I was like,
And
that's
they're
probably true.
you're taught that. You're literally taught that.
Oh,
You sit down with your new recruit and you ask them, like, what's your why? What is motivating you? If you can get that out even before you sign them up, great. But once you sign them up, you want to find out what's driving them, not because you want to empathize with their motivations.
yeah.
It's because when they don't do what they say they're going to do, you can come back with, well, I really thought you wanted to retire your mom, or I really thought you wanted to da 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 da. And so you're
Yes.
taught to use that as collateral, essentially. Like that's what they're doing. And it's pitched as, you're finding people's pain point, or you're trying to serve the person you used to be, and you're finding people's pain and helping them solve a problem, impacting them, serving them. But you're not. You're really just seeking out where they're hurting and then narrowing in on it.
Yes, and her, yeah, I was just like, that never crossed my mind, even though I do believe like in all the predatory natures, because I've been a part of it and I've watched like, what is her name? Kiki Chanel, I think it
Mm-hmm.
is. She was the first anti.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't do it as much anymore, but when I was like at the height of watching my anti MLM stuff, she was huge in it, and she would just the stuff that she would get, the receipts that she would bring from these, like you said, mastermind calls or all these calls, like it actually hurt me on the inside to think of all these women like not all of them, but most of them insecure or looking for something and being talked down to, and accepting that that was truth, that these individuals had a fucking right to say that to them,
Mm-hmm.
and that they were just in a space that they accepted it. Because I do that. Like I've done that in past jobs where I'll just take, like, not my job now, I love it, but past ones, especially in the oil field, where I just take that kind of shit and I was like, oh, I deserve it. It's like, it just breaks my heart that some of these women sit there and they think I'm not succeeding because I'm not good enough. And when reality is that system's not set up for you to succeed unless you're one of the first like 100,
Mm-hmm.
then fuck yeah. But that's why I feel like these ones branch off and make their own, because they
Mm-hmm.
know that they're going to be successful and it will fizzle out and they'll just start another one. Like they all jump around and jump to different ones, and then they'll say, oh, I moved because this comp plan is better. And it's like, okay, let's talk about comp plans. Far as I know, like 90% of people don't make that kind of money that people claim to make,
In
that they
any comp
do.
plan.
Yeah. I'm like, how? How? How?
Yeah.
There can't be
I
that
mean,
many people in the world to recruit.
right.
It's going to
And
run
but
out.
that's they literally they that's what they tell you is that you're not, and they don't frame it like we're going to recruit the entire world, because obviously you can't, but they're just
Yeah.
like, oh, you just got to get a couple people who get a couple people who get a couple people, and then it just grows without you. And that's where you're like, oh, I guess I can kind of believe that. Like, yeah, I have 4 friends that I would travel with. They're like
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
But then when you actually do the math and extrapolate it out, you're like, there's only so many people in the world for what, maybe even one successful tree to be built, only so deep, let alone everybody having the same opportunity. Like, how many sales reps does a region even need?
Yeah. Yes. I
But
know it's
yeah.
so hard. And it's like when there's a part, like I said, when they're a part of a bunch too, it's like all these like, Arbonne used to be just certain things and then it branched out. And other ones used to be certain things and then they branch out. And it's like, what happens if you're a part of two that now branch out with the same, like you said, all of a sudden now you're a skincare. Well, what if you were already like had your hand kind of in Arbonne because you kind of already liked that stuff in your travel company? Now you're working for two companies that both sell skincare. Who's better?
Yeah.
And like, I agree with you that 100%. I think there's two ways of that. The coaching space has no regulation, and the supplement space has no regulation. And I'm not always for like government regulation. We all know this on the show. However, there's got to be some friggin' accountability or some sort of
Right.
board or something holding people accountable, and having different walks of life represent that board, so that so it is actually true and equal, and it's not just a
Right.
set of people, whether that's by gender, by race, by social status, by knowledge, right? Like you have all these people with like psychological degrees manipulating people that have high school education. Like I have high school education. I didn't know these tactics until I got used and hurt and then found them out. So
Right. Yeah.
I think it's really important too to talk about like comp plans. I know they're all lies, but like from your experience, do you truly see a lot of people successful in MLMs, or is it kind of more of a
No, I
flop?
mean, absolutely not. Comp plans are, and that's why I've kind of like centered around creating information to like create awareness for the person who hasn't been in. Because, like you said so well earlier, is if people really knew the truth about these things, they wouldn't join. And the reason that people do get joined is because they get lured in. They're only shown one piece of the puzzle, that kind of thing. Comp plans are intentionally made to be super hard to understand. So like, and I've done inside sales. You know what my comp plan looked like? It said this number of sales, this is what you make. That's all that it
Yeah.
is, because that's all that it needs to be, right? You make 5
Yes.
sales, you make $5,000 or whatever whatever it is. It doesn't need
Yeah.
to have these tiers, these
Percentage and
percentages, different bonus pools, all these other. They're intentionally made to hide how much people are losing or how few people are actually making money in it. They're also, like, you'll see, like the one of the hallmark characteristics of a pyramid scheme is a recruiting mandate. They don't outright say that you have to recruit, but you'll
yeah.
see if you track what pays me the most in the comp plan, you'll see that you're not making the money off of selling the product. You have to build a team to be successful, and very few people get to the top ranks. The other thing about comp plans is they're all hypothetical examples. And I'm like, why does that have to be? Because no, you can't actually extrapolate it out that way for there to be enough people in the world. So they'll be
Yeah.
like, if you go show 10 people this week, probably 2 of them will sign up. And then you have 2 reps with you. And then next week you can all go show 10 people. And then each of you will sign 2 people up. And they just like build out this hypothetical example. So it sounds like, okay, at the beginning, you're like, okay,
So
I think I
easy.
can do that. But they
2
don't
people.
really, it never grows like that. And they don't ever say like who's actually hitting those ranks to like get to those points. And then the
And
other
they
thing
probably
about,
don't they probably don't talk about
no,
people that cancel too, right? So it's like you
no.
build those people, but then someone's like, actually, I can't afford this, I can't do this, da 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 da, and then you lose people. It's not like you get that one person, they're locked in. Like you're having people move, and I think that's why people get so desperate sometimes too, is that people cancel, and that's why they attack anti-MLM, because that's directly affecting people that are going to
Mm-hmm.
be leaving when they find that information that directly affects them to their upline, to the top of their pyramid.
Mm-hmm. They never account for the attrition ever. Like they
No.
don't count that people are going to leave. And obviously people, I mean, the thing that keeps the system afloat is people paying until they can't pay anymore. Once you're dry, then you quit and whatever. You're just a number in the system, you know.
Yeah.
But they don't account for that attrition. And like if you look at the income disclosure statement that at least in the U.S., every company is supposed to be putting this out. They don't necessarily always do. And these are also very obscure. Like it should just say this is the rank, this is what you make, but it's never that simple. But even in there, they don't account for the attrition. So the numbers they give you, the numbers where they say only 1% is making any money and 0.05 maybe making like actually a full-time income percent,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
even that sheet isn't counting all the people that left. So those numbers, even though it's already at a 0.05% that's making a residual income, those numbers are still not accurate
Still
because
wrong.
it's not counting all the people that just joined and left. And so
Yes.
it's even worse than they make it out to be
Yes.
on that.
Yes. And I kind of have to wonder too, because this was kind of like myself, and we know how girl math goes. It's like if I have cash and I spend it, it's not really spending it because it wasn't in my bank account, so it didn't really exist,
Yeah.
right? So I find for myself, like now, obviously I've been a business owner a couple times, so you start to like realize when you're starting to look at expenses and the money that you're earning, and you know compare those things. But I'm not sure that probably happens as much in MLMs, where it's kind of like gamblers. It's like, okay, you went in and you're like, I won $2,000. You're like, okay, cool. But how much money did you spend to win that $2,000? Did you take that into account? Because if I spent $1,000 to make that $2,000, in my mind, I only made $1,000. But you're saying you made 2,000 because you're trying to like whatever magically word yourself around that you lost, like that you had to put that in. But what you're telling people is you won 2,000. So people hear that, they don't know that there's an underlying, well, I had to pay 1,000 up front to get there. And I think a lot of women get trapped into liking a product, finding out they can get it cheaper as a rep. Like you said, you get in, like you said, you want to go travel, and then now you have to have a certain amount that you hit to stay at that level to get those discounts. And then I think what happens is that it just keeps paying it. And then I think sometimes when you lose people, I feel like I've seen women get like their husbands under their name to order so that they, and it just becomes this nasty thing where it's like, if you're not fully paying attention to how much you're spending and how much is coming in, like in a fucking Excel spreadsheet, which I'm sure 90% of people do not do, how can you possibly say that you're making more money? This is my question. I'm like, do you do taxes? Do you submit that? Do you have to do that? Like, I'm not entirely sure, but I don't know if people not want to do that, but I always get curious if that's
It's
part
a
of the
little bit of
conversation
both.
there, right?
It's definitely not part of the conversation. Like, again, this is why I say there's no business training at those events, because they don't tell you to do a profit and loss statement. They don't tell you to track your business expenses. And everything you just said, so many things you just said, like, yes, people, they get talked into it because they're like, I love this product. So then they don't count buying the product as an expense, because then they're like, oh, I would buy it anyways. Yeah, I'd buy that anyways. They don't realize they're spending more on it and more frequently. And then, yes, the whole buying rank thing wasn't so prevalent in my company. A little bit, you'd create accounts for family members, like people would do that. I knew that. But like with product-based companies, I know it happens a ton, because you can create accounts underneath you for a spouse, for a child, and then order on their accounts. This is you spending your own money to buy your own rank. But then and you just keep and you hit the rank, but quotas start over again every month. So if you bought it last month, unless you just have massive growth, you're gonna have to do it again, And I didn't necessarily again, no products when I was in the travel piece. Your overhead was the membership that you were paying for. So I was paying like $50 a month for my travel membership. But once you sold enough of your own memberships, you like got yours for free. And so after a couple months, that was my story, right? I had a fast start. They have fast start bonuses too. So you feel like you're seeing success early and then it drops off. It's all so planned.
So evil. It's
Yeah.
like,
So yeah.
you're just like, this is brilliant and evil. They're not brilliant, but like for a bad thing, like they've figured this out over the years. Like they really have dialed with
Yeah.
the trends, like
Mm-hmm.
you said, the coaching and all that. And they get you. And like, even if
It,
you're just like, but maybe I'm wrong. I
yeah.
want this to be right because this is
Yeah.
great. Like if this is real, this is amazing. It's the same thing with all cults, man. They all start with
Yeah.
usually not Charles Manson, but like
Yeah.
Scientology in the end. Like besides the crazy stuff, it is like a lot of it's based in good thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
Outside of the government, like out of the systems, homegrown nature connection. None of this. Like it's great, but then you get a sociopath at the top and it's like there's a difference when you're praying to someone who's passed, like the difference it's like to a like religion or a cult. It's like if that person's alive and they're expecting you to bow down to them, you're probably in a cult.
Yeah.
If it's someone that's passed, that's like a religious faithful figure, well, that's more of a like a religion spiritual base, right? So
Totally.
it's like,
Yeah.
to me, I look at these people that are standing on the stage at these arenas like Tony Robbins and Joe Dispenza, and like even though I love a lot of what they teach, I've learned a lot from them. We can't treat them like gods, though. We can't
Exactly.
treat them without fault. We
Exactly.
can't treat them that they're not also in a business making money, because y'all, I've meditated to Joe and I've also meditated to not Joe, and honestly I prefer not. Like I'm like, what am I missing here? Like I feel like I don't quite understand what I should be doing. Maybe I'm just not there in my spiritual journey. I don't know. But like for people to be spending thousands of dollars to go to these retreats, it's amazing. But did you put that into your income and loss? Did you make that much?
Mm-hmm.
And then you
Yeah.
get spouses arguing, like, why are you bleeding money? And then they're also brainwashed to fight against their spouses. Don't tell
Mm-hmm.
your men. That was my
Mm-hmm.
other biggest thing. It was like, don't just put it on your credit card. Don't tell your man. I'm like,
Such bad advice. It's such
don't
bad
do that
advice.
ever. Like,
Yeah.
if your husband generally is a dick, then sure. But if he's saying like, don't spend money ever, that's a difference than please don't spend money on this MLM. Like those are two different conversations,
Right.
I think.
100%. 100%. And like, yes, like you mentioned the training, like I got a fast start. So my membership fee went away. So I didn't feel like I was bleeding money. Right. But I was paying for training. Like I had the mentality, because I grew up as a perfectionist. So when someone tells me all you got to do is work hard and you'll be successful, I'm like, oh,
On
great.
it.
I'm just going to go balls to the wall,
Yeah.
And then, so I said, I'm going to go to all the trainings my first year. And so trainings you pay for. So they're in a different city. You have to fly there. You have to stay in a hotel. You have to pay for your food. You got to pay for your transportations. You got to pay for the ticket for the event. And you're basically paying to get brainwashed. And they do this multiple times a year, usually like once a month. And then a couple bigger ones, and that's where all my money was going. Like, and then on top of that, buying the trips, like Dream Trips was good. They were good because it's like they explained it like Costco, like you pay for a membership and then you get access to all these savings. But like all you're getting access to is savings. So you have to spend more money. And when I really started to break it down, and I'm like, you're really not getting anything besides like a booking engine. And sure, I went on the trips and the trips were great. And I met my boyfriend on one of the trips and we fell in love. And of course that became like my product story and I became more attached to the whole thing. But like,
and fair. That's a fair story. Like that's
no,
cool.
totally.
Like that's
Yeah.
awesome, right? It
was
brought
great.
you there. It gives some purpose to it, right? Like
Totally.
not all loss.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that was the best thing that, came out of it, but it blinds you to how much you're actually spending and how much you're actually losing money. And then when you actually start to like write it all down, you're like, oh, holy crap. This is thousands of dollars over the years that I ended up spending just traveling. And again, you justify it. You're like, oh, well, I got to go to a new city and I got to go to a place I'd never been before. And I had so much fun. And I would have wanted to do that anyways. But it's like at the end of the day, if you're tracking business expenses, you're spending money on that because of business.
Yes.
And I don't even like calling it a business.
Yeah, I know. And that's where I struggle. And it's like, I think because, just as I've only been a small business owner where I was like a photographer and we have like a paddleboard renting company here in Kelowna. So we've just had very small businesses, but I even just a photography business and what it takes to just do my taxes and even the podcast, like I don't get paid for this. You know how much time I spend editing and getting content and talking to everybody and posting and all that kind of stuff. It's like that all takes time. And also one thing I'd like to point out too, I think all the things that you have to do for small businesses, and when you get into it and then you start like thinking about all the marketing and all the little things that you have to do, it all adds up. So when you go look at women, no offense, like I don't want to mean this offensively, but they say, oh, I'm my own business, I'm an entrepreneur. But when you sign up, you get a package of all your marketing material, you get a package of copy and paste things to say. You don't have to research your products very much. They're going to give that to you. You don't have to you don't have an accounts receivable that's paying for all these products to be made. You're not paying the employees to make the stuff. You're not involved in the logistics of shipping the stuff across the world. You literally sign up for something and your job is to advertise on social media and you get a kickback from that. And I think that that's more to me like where like network marketing, you say Amazon and here's a link and you get 10%, like to me that's kind of
what
more
like that's what
what I feel like
affiliate
it
marketing
is.
is, and that's what I think
Yeah.
network marketing pretends to claim that it is.
Yeah.
Affiliate marketing, again, doesn't have a comp plan. Why? Because it doesn't need
No,
one.
it doesn't.
It
You
doesn't
just
need
sell a
one.
product, you get a percent, right? So it's
Yeah.
like to me that makes perfect sense. I love when, people are like follow my link to buy this. I'm like, cool, because this person is actually going to get the money. It's not hurting other people. It's not making people down at the bottom need to work even harder. But I just think it's kind of crazy when I see the difference from my small business, even like I said, to that where it's like, well, I had to learn how to use InShot. I had to learn how to sell myself on Instagram. I had to learn myself and stumble through that, where you were given a package with all of that in it. You have a support to call. If the product gets recalled, that's not on you. Like, if someone has a bad service for you, like you're going to know that as a small business. You're going to see that Google review. If you have a bad, let's say, what is it? What's the hair shit? Monate?
Yeah.
Like how many civil lawsuits are Monate through right now because people have lost their hair and tried to fight them, but they have such a big corporate law department. No average person is going to be able to fight these big MLMs, and that's why you don't hear of all of these lawsuits. But if
Mm-hmm.
someone like us were to get sued, let's say God forbid, we would have to fight that on our own
Yeah.
with no backing. So like the
Yeah.
worries that a small business owner has versus someone that runs an MLM to me are very different. And
Oh
I
yeah.
think that it's almost a smack in the face to those that do run a small business too. It's kind of like, oh, we do the same thing. It's like, you can have your piece, you can have your title, you can have that part in the world. I'm not saying you shouldn't exist. I'm just saying, please don't lump that in with the small business owner because it's not the same. Your
Mm-hmm.
taxes will not see it the same. You don't really like it's not. And that's my
Yeah.
biggest beef is like,
Yeah.
well, and I'm sure you've seen that now, right? Like
Yeah.
every person that shares something's great. You have to put your name out there. People know about Arbonne. So if someone goes to sell it, they don't know, it's easier to sell.
Yeah.
Right? I find that
Yeah.
so silly.
And
Sorry.
there's so many differences between actually being a business owner, and you mentioned how they seem so busy still. It's interesting because it's all a lie in the pitch too. Like they say, you can build it in the pockets of your time, or you're only doing it for a couple days a week. Like that's not true. Like once
No.
you're in, if you really want to see success, they tell you should be working it like a job. And when you're trying to work and you're spinning your wheels, like for me, I was working really hard, like out. Like I was just transferred to UC Berkeley, which is the hardest I've ever tried and been average. Like I used to
Yeah.
be really good in school and I worked so hard at that school and I was like a C student. I was
Oh,
busting my butt. But I was also
I'd
in a
fail.
cult. I was also in a pyramid
Yeah.
scheme, because
Yeah.
all my free time was going towards 3 presentations a day, get on the calls, they try to build in your morning routines, like wake up, read 20 pages of a good book, go do da da da. And there's all merit to those things, right? A lot of those things
Totally.
I still do, but a lot of it is consume our audios, read the books we tell you to read, listen to this content on
Cultivate.
your way. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're so busy doing all of this stuff. You're actually like, don't get me wrong, our business is small, it's growing, and I sometimes feel like I can't turn it off. Like we were on vacation last week and I was like, I was working on vacation because usually I wouldn't do that ever. But
No,
like
for
right
sure.
now we're in a place where I'm like, if we're booking gigs, we gotta book gigs. Like
We
I
got
gotta
it.
answer.
Yes. Of
And
course.
so
And there is that hustle, but then it's hustling to no longer do that for yourself. not because you're going to pass that on to someone else's back to do. Right.
Right.
So it's like, there is that hustle for your own business, but that's what I'm saying. It's actually harder in
yeah.
that sense, right?
Yeah.
Like they say all those things, like, we don't have to do it in your pocket at the time. Lie, you do it all the time. And two, it's like, yeah, it's just different. It's totally different.
It's
I see
way
what you're
different.
saying.
It's way different.
Yeah.
And then, I wouldn't say that I do think running an actual business is more work, because like I said, I don't think an MLM is a real business, but it's also way easier to see results. And like, this is a point I want to touch on, because what that does to your self-esteem, to be working so hard at something and not seeing any results, and then blaming yourself for it. And then you're told to just trust the group more. And it's like this trauma bond you're starting to form with the group. And so you try to just lean in more, and it just destroys your self-confidence and your self-worth and your image and your identity. And so when I got out and we're like, let's build a bartending company, and I'm like, shit, from the first event, I've made more than I've ever made in my 7 years in network marketing. And I'm like, oh, I can actually just sell a product. I don't have to do 100 affirmations beforehand. I don't have to get myself into the right mindset. I don't have to have this power position over my prospect. I don't have to do all of these emotionally manipulative things and then slowly try to bait somebody into training. I don't have to do any of those things. I just have to sell what I have, and that's it.
Just be happy. That's
just
it.
make good on my promise there, Yeah. And I'm like, wow, it's actually much easier to see results in a business that you're equipped and qualified, to do,
and aligned, right?
Yeah,
like you feel
definitely.
that purpose, right? And now too, like, there's always going to be that little vendetta of like, fuck you, I'm going to prove you that I do not need that too, right? Like, in a sense, like, and showing other people that they can do it, right? And that's why I really wanted to have you on the show, because I have been watching, like I said, for like 5 years. And I was shocked when, you had posted, like, because obviously we didn't know that until like, hey, here's a YouTube channel. I was like, immediately I was like, we need to talk. Like, this is the opportunity I've been waiting for.
I
was
love
like, this is
so
great.
much, because one of the things, and I want to address this too, because I did try to reach out to you when I was in, and you just stopped responding to me. And I'm like, that was one of those situations where I was like,
sorry.
No, don't be sorry.
I try to be good with people. Like, I know I'm pretty good. I'm like, no thanks, da-da-da. And then other people, I'm just like, go fuck yourself. Like, like people that I know, I'm always like, thanks for thinking of me. And like, I try to be like at least a little bit more diplomatic. But then, I will say nothing instead of saying something mean. So I'll just be like, as much as I hate that, I don't want to be rude either. But I'm like, I like this girl. I love her vibe. I've known her for so long. She is a hustler. She's, just got this bright energy. I don't want to lose her. But in the same sense, I was just like, I feel like you're being hurt, because that's just how I felt about MLMs at the time. I was just like, no, like, I hope that you're okay. And I hope that but you don't want to say that to someone, because when they're in it,
they're not going to hear you
if you bring it up. Exactly. And I was like, I don't, so it's funny. It's probably why I never said anything, but then it's like full circle moment, right? Where it's like, now we can talk about this. And it's something that I've always been like, wish I could reach out to you and be like, hey, like, do you for sure know that this is what you want to do? Like, no hate, but like, because I seen the other side. And then I was like, no, I don't want to lose her. Like, even just as a social media friend. And then now it's like, oh, sick, we can talk about it, because it was something.
I love that. Yeah. And I'll speak to that, because one of the things I did that I regret is I prospected anybody and everybody. Like there was a point at where I was reaching out to hundreds of people a day, hundreds. And
that's what they tell you to do.
And you feel, especially being an introvert, that being so far outside of my normal functioning, I felt so icky about all the people that I reached out to. And I'm very lucky, because it's shitty, because I did have a lot of credibility with my network, and I don't think I completely lost it. But I did lose some friends, or people created distance with me who I wish didn't create distance with me for the very exact same reason. And on the other side of that coin, it was like, I joined Go Team Academy because I was trying to build my network marketing business, and you were taught to go network. And then if you like somebody, go reach out to them. And so that's what I was doing. And it's so nice to like be on the other side of that, have you reach out, be in this place. And like that it makes me feel so much better about just, even if it's just that one relationship that I didn't completely destroy, you know what I mean?
Yes.
And it just makes me feel so much better, because people are so ashamed when they leave an
Mm-hmm.
MLM. This is why they don't speak out. This is why they don't reach back out to those friends. My roommate in college, she got mad. She tried to tell me I was in a pyramid scheme. I ended up cutting her off. And
Yep.
thankfully now, like, we've reconnected. I reached out to her. I was like, I'm so sorry. And she's like,
You
oh
were
my
right.
God. And we're fine, and I'm so
Yeah.
glad that, and that's what I'll say here too, is if you have been an MLM and you're afraid to reach out to your friends, most of them will be happy to have you back. Most of them
100%.
will be totally
100%.
fine with having, and it does take a little bit of eating a slice of humble pie and saying, oh shit, I fucked up and whatever,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. It's good. We need to
yeah.
do it. Like, who the fuck does not go through life not doing stupid stuff? Like,
Yeah.
and if those people don't take your apology, they're not your people anyways, but we'll always be here. And that's always why I've always been like, I'm not going to unfollow someone because they mention an opportunity because they truly believe that they could help me. I'm not going to be mad about that. That's
Yeah.
not why I'm being mad. If I said no and you would stop, that's when I would start, like, not you, but like, that's
Yeah.
when I would stop, because I'm like, okay, I've set up the boundary and now you're pushing just for sales. And that, like, because if you truly cared about me, you would just let me be me and I would come to you. And I'm the firm believer, if you have a good product, it should, or a service, for the most part, word of mouth will get around.
Mhm.
But people, like I said, in this microwave society, don't want to wait for that slow progression, don't understand that it takes time to build that and build that trust. They just immediately will just blanket everybody and maybe someone will say yes. And I
Mhm.
feel like right now, my biggest thing is with the fitness industry and the coaches that come in, and now they're, online fitness is so huge. I'm seeing the exact same tactics that they do in MLMs that they do with this online coaching. And it's not even just MLMs anymore that are entering your DMs, copy and paste, like, oh, it's great, we connected. Do you like my content? How can I help you more? Or like, I'll share something and then they'll respond to being like, can you comment on that? So the algorithm, and then I'll be like, sure. And then I'll go and comment. And then they like rip my comment apart just to like start dialogue and bring algorithm. I'm like, I fucking hate all of you. Like, some of these people, like, I'm kind of terrified of Nicole Arbor, to be honest with you. So I don't want to like say anything where she's gonna like make a hate video about me, but like, I
Oh.
disagreed with her. And didn't even tag her. I just said I didn't agree with one of the posts that she had about Candace Owens. And I didn't even tag her in it. And she then went to my page and started commenting things on posts to get me like going. And I'm like, I'm not fucking baiting this, because she was arguing people online. And I was like, dude, I was your biggest fan. I
Yeah.
defended you for like 10 fucking years.
I did
And
too.
I started seeing stuff with like other people, and like other people that I really respect, like Tommy Vex and Ryan Upchurch, and those maybe are bad guys, I don't know. But I started seeing this pattern. And I was like, well, I felt really bad. And then I actually reached out to some of the girls from the Go team and was like, did you feel this way too? And they're like 110%. And I was like, oh, okay, validated. And so it's like, but you were ashamed to bring it up, and I didn't want to say anything because I was afraid that she would like, quote unquote, destroy me as I'm trying to build my own podcast. And I'm also Canadian, and I speak out about the truth, and I'm shadow banned, and so I just get pissed off when it's like I'm really actually trying to help people and I like get suppressed. But then people like that like can be out there hurting others, and it's like, because they're already famous, it doesn't matter. So
Yeah.
I
And I
agree.
mean,
Like, it was great, but I definitely felt the wave of all of the MLM network marketers after that coming in
yeah.
my DMs being like, hey, and then knowing now how vulnerable I was in all the posts that I posted, I pretty much just gave a ton of ammo to people to use that against me, to manipulate me, to try and join whatever they were
Mhm.
trying to sell out of that group. And I was like, ooh, I might not do that again. That
Yeah.
I might just stick to books and like courses where it's like one-on-one to the program itself,
Mhm.
and maybe not as much of a group thing, because I felt that was very pushed about. I felt out of place because I wasn't an MLM person. So I was like, I feel like a lot of this is not directed towards me because I work for a company. I don't own my own business in the sense where I needed to learn that. And I didn't realize that that's kind of what that was. I thought it was just kind of self-help, but it was great. I learned a lot. I loved JP. I loved who else was it? Teresa. I still follow a
Mhm.
lot of them to
Me
this
too.
day, and like I do love their stuff. But yeah, I
Mhm.
definitely have icky vibes going forward. Nicole Ever, please don't come for me. I'm
No,
sure you won't
and
see this, but it was just a shitty experience, and it sucked to realize she was my first influencer. I was like, okay, maybe not everyone is what I think that they are.
yeah. Yeah. And
Or Canadian.
even Danelle, like Danelle is great, but Danelle came from MLM. So that's why such a huge chunk of her following is MLMers. And then she turned into a coach. And this is the pipeline that you'll see a lot of MLM. So, like, we talked about people that don't make money, people that do make money. The bottom line is the residual forever income that they're pitching is not viable. So even if you do make money in an MLM, you're still working really hard pretending you have time freedom. And the second that you stop, is when it's going to go down, or it may go down even if you don't stop, because they're just these companies are unsustainable. Like the reason they're telling you to contact everybody know as quick as you can is because they need to be virally expanding, otherwise they're going to collapse. And so a lot of these people go into coaching after they've made their money in MLM. And they're going into another industry that's, again, unregulated. And when I say unregulated, it doesn't have to be government regulation, but a code of ethics, somebody who's holding people accountable for the way that they're out. Just like a therapist, just like a doctor, just like they have a board and like ethics that they're supposed to operate by. Otherwise they can get reported, and that doesn't exist for the coaching space. And then a lot of people come out of MLM. So then they bring the same tactics. And that's why you're seeing this overflow into all these other things. And even the pyramid scheme is overflowing, because that's where you'll notice the coaches are coaching coaches to coach other coaches. They're not actually coaching them on building a bakery or building a whatever. Like if you had success in building a bakery and you wanted to become a coach to help other people build bakeries, then I would expect your clients to go open bakeries, not to become coaches who coach other coaches to open other bakeries, And that's
exactly. It's a lifestyle sell that it's not actually teaching anything in a sense. And that's where I'm struggling with let's be honest here, like OnlyFans is like the sex MLM, right? Like the girls that are making bank on OnlyFans, like whatever, we've talked about that in the past. I won't get into it. Go to past episodes so you all know how I feel. But my biggest beef is like these young women are being shown this quote unquote lifestyle. Oh, I'm just an OnlyFans model, da 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 da. But it's like most of them aren't making real big bank unless they've have a huge following. And like someone like Trisha Paytas, let's say, for example, she makes most of her money not just on her content, but for all the people that have signed up underneath her. And then they make money off of their income. So it's like it's a little bit predatory in the sense that you could be completely fake, and these young girls are going to, especially with AI and filters, they could be 17, 16 years old putting these filters on and thinking that and walking into a really scary lifestyle. And I think this whole like being quote unquote able to share that, I just think it shouldn't happen. Like you shouldn't be able to sell your lifestyle if that's not truly your lifestyle without sharing the like dangers of it. MLMs, they never share the dangers of it. You never hear of like, it's always and the minute you say, oh, well, I heard someone reacted to that problem. Oh, well, that person's a liar. Or they didn't have it properly. And and I was like, here, listen, y'all go to Western medicine. And I'm not a huge fan. We all know this, like, it has its place, but I'm not the hugest fan of it. But you guys get mad at them for doing that, but you do the same thing. I don't understand how that's okay. And then someone says like, oh, well, it's not good for me. Like, I think one of the biggest ones that people fight about is like TRS. It's like a metal detox. People fight about this all the time. And it's like, if you can't acknowledge that some people can react to it, that's a red flag to me, right? Like, if you're just like, this broad product is for everybody. No. What do you mean kids are on supplements? What? Are we not feeding them whole foods? Like, are we not giving them some fruits and vegetables? Like, if they're eating out of a packaged life, then they probably are depleted of minerals and vitamins at a young age. But that's more on like lifestyle. To me, it's like, it scares me, like you said, when people are like, oh, just take this supplement for kids. It's like, they're fresh. What do you mean? Like 37, sure. I made poor choices. Maybe I need to supplement. But children, like, what are we doing? And to me, it's just like a cash cow thing. Now these people are always going to think that they need these supplements to be healthy.
Right.
When I argue that as a natural person.
Right. I mean, and I'm not completely against supplements, right? Like I'll take some protein after I work out or like whatever, but like creating a dependency on them is where the problem is. And like that was my huge issue with Amare is like I signed up and then I'm like again, I was hanging out in the background. I didn't like officially quit. And then what happened was my father was really sick. He had colon cancer and he passed this past year. Thank you. It was, kind of an expected, like it was like a slow kind of decline, so we knew that it was coming. And then it was August of last year and I was I went back to California. I kind of took some indefinite time off of work, and like my brother was like, it's time, come home. So like I had like 2 or 3 weeks where I was sitting at the house I grew up in, my dad's old house. And, it was just his last couple weeks. So he wasn't really completely all there. And me and my brother are just there more for just support and whatever. And, I kind of disconnected from the world at this time. So I think that's important to mention because all it really takes is to see start to get some clarity about MLMs is just a little bit of space, a little bit of distance to where you unplug from their daily, all the go they're having you do. And just to think about it, I was already kind of taking a back seat, but I was still in and still believed in the opportunity, Yeah. And so I found it, I love true crime, went down a true crime rabbit hole, found some anti-MLM content. Because those two go hand in hand.
They do, yeah. A lot of people like to do that. I love it.
And I actually was like, once I started watching anti-MLM content, I think the algorithm like started to show me more. And so then I saw a coach, because I was in Rank Makers, which is an MLM coaching group run by Ray Higdon, which is like a pyramid on top of a pyramid, a cult on top of a cult. And I saw one of his coaches, like an ex-coach of his, speaking out against him, against Avon, which was her company, against the whole MLM industry. And it was one of those moments of, we're taught to think everybody who speaks out against us is haters. But I trusted her and I respected her. So I'm like, I'm going to listen. I'm just going to listen because I respect her. Like, what? Holy crap, she's anti-MLM. Where did that come from? And that's kind of how I went down the hole. And because I needed a distraction, I just hours and hours and hours of content, and I consumed them. And then when I realized really how bad it all was is when I like resigned officially, like sent in a letter to Amare, a letter to Dream Trips, and a letter to Secret, or an email, and said, I'm like, please resign, like take me out of the back office, do all those things. I had mentioned Amare to my previous upline, Erin, from the travel company. And she's a lifer. I can just tell you that. But she ended up joining that same company, and she just does things to irk me. And maybe she didn't do that to irk me, but it just feels like it because that's how our relationship has always been. Yeah. But now she's in that company, and literally, and this is the new thing. And this is what irks me about Amare specifically. They all do this in their own way, but she's exploiting. She just had a baby, and she's taking the supplements as a solution to her postpartum rage. And I was like, postpartum rage? She posts a super vulnerable thing about how she's always been angry and she feels touched out and all these things, all this stuff like you should not be sharing on social media. Like, please don't tell me how angry you are with your husband and your kid. Like, go to therapy. Like, like
talk to him.
Yeah. And
not to social media.
Then how this product is the solution to her postpartum rage. And then obviously you can tell because the only people commenting it are other reps. And so I go to her upline, and she has a post from like 2 weeks before that about how she was so angry as a mom, and then so they teach this as a recruiting strategy. And then you can see her recruit saying the same thing. Oh, so depressed after I had a baby. And then, and it just makes me so angry because I don't have kids, but I'm 33. A lot of my friends do. And like, that's just the most vulnerable time ever.
100%.
And on top of that, your biology is all messed up too. So they are offering things to like help as a solution, Yeah. And I'm watching this, I'm like, this is so predatory. Like, I'm just seeing people claim that these supplements are helping when they've only been on them for 10 days. How do you know anything's working for you? And then now, like, they're rolling out kids supplements, and like, you could see it. I just like track it because now I'm like just this MLM sleuth on Facebook.
Yes,
but, like,
of course, you have to.
You could track it. Like, their new launch is a kids calm supplement, which there's so many things wrong with that. Why are you giving your kids a calm supplement? Like, you need to let them be kids. And if they're too much for you to handle, maybe you take something off of your plate so that you can handle that instead of giving them a supplement so that they're more calm. Like,
100%.
and they're all telling the same stories about like, well, you know how it is with this many kids, and we all need to sleep better, and so I'm pre-ordering this kids comp. So they're like selling it before they've even had it, before they've even tried it. There's so many things wrong with that. And again, it's not just Amare,
So many.
but
No, that's
that's
across the globe.
it's across the board. But like that's
Yeah.
the stuff that makes me just so angry, because that's just like, I don't know,
Predatory.
so
And it's just,
predatory.
yeah, and it's taking advantage of like really good people at their most vulnerable time and then chalking it up like it's help. And I think that's what bothers me the most, right? It's just like, that's what I mean when people are telling me like, oh, just take this and I'll cure your infertility. How do you know that? And like, furthermore, like women that have to deal with postpartum depression, like that is a huge thing to go through. And so if naturally you hear someone says, oh, you just take this, it'll be easier. And I feel like, again, we all want to have that simple solution of just taking that one thing. I get it. I 100% get it. I wish I could just blink and have abs, but I've been working out for a decade. I still eat cake and they're not here. So like sometimes it's just not going to happen, but I feel like,
I feel you, girl.
Right? Like what the fuck? But like what bothers me is like, again, I come from fitness in a sense, so like to me, it's like, you have to do the uncomfortable. You have to learn how to eat healthy. You have to learn to set your boundaries and go to bed. You have to drink water. You have to eat whole foods. You can't just eat one day out of the week and drink coffee all day and then all of a sudden be like, I don't understand why I'm so anxious and depressed. Like your body is not getting its basic needs, but then you're going to go and mask that with something else, whether that's Western medicine, a supplement. To me, my biggest beef is people not taking care of themselves and looking at what they're eating. And like even talking about kids, why do you need to calm your children? Okay, maybe they have ADHD, maybe that's fine. What causes that? Do they actually have it? Are you looking at the dyes that are in the food? Are you like looking at the social media and the TV time that, you know what I mean? But everything is just like, oh, we have a product. This person says it works. Okay, let's just give it a try. It's like, it's so much more deeper than that. Like you said earlier, I really liked what you said. It's all surface level healing, right? It's not shadow work. It's saying all these things, reading all these books, doing the affirmations, doing the gratitude. I get that. Scientifically, those things are good for you.
Right.
But if you truly don't believe them, or you don't understand their purpose, or you're just doing it to tick things off in a box because that's what's going to make you quote unquote successful, I don't think you're honoring the process of that activity at all. Like, and that's where I think people get disconnected, that they're, like you said, you're so busy doing all these things and you're so busy spending money on other things. Like these books cost money. These audiobooks cost money. These courses cost money. These, like, I've done it too, where you want to make aesthetics. So you're busy cleaning your house. So if you're doing a video, it looks nice. Like, yeah, I get it. But like it's everything. I feel like it's just fake and it's a lie. And it makes me sad because, like you said, you speak out about it and all of a sudden you're a woman hater and you're not empowering women and you're against single moms. And it's like, but I know that money is not going to a single mom. Like I know it's going to go up to one of her uplines, which like,
I'd rather just Venmo you. Like if you need, like, and a lot of people don't pitch me anymore, but like if somebody did pitch me with the line of, help me support whatever, help me buy groceries for my kids. Like I will tell them I'll rather just send you money for it. Like I'm not going to support the scheme because it isn't helping the single mom. Maybe they'll get the commission that one time, but they're getting more bought into the system that's eventually just systematically defrauding them and exploiting and they're working for free and all these things. And it also, the other problematic thing about MLMs, like it teaches you since all these things are taught to you under the guise of like training and personal development, sometimes it's hard for you to discern what's real and what's not. And then a lot of these people carry these practices or these ideals out into their actual life. Like, for example, when you want something new or you have something going on, open a credit card. That's not good advice, but if you did that for your MLM, then you can be like, oh, well, I have a business expense. Maybe I'll just get a business credit card. You know what I mean? Yeah, or totally. The second something goes wrong, you're going to turn to a supplement instead of sitting with your sober self, your natural self, and being like, how do I feel right now? What is making me feel this way? And sitting with that uncomfortability so that you can actually work through it.
Yes. That's what I mean. That's what you said. It's all surface level. So you can go to these things and you got that hype and everyone's around and it's hyper because it's vibes. It's energy. Energy doesn't lie, like in that sense in the moment. But it's like, do you just get that high? And then it's like, I feel like then after you're always chasing that high of that that event, of that
Mm-hmm.
rank, of that month that you sold, and everyone's proud of you and they're cheering you on. And it's like, then other people, like you said, see this, they see the comments and they're like, all these people, but they're not realizing those are reps. Those are
Mm-hmm.
people that they tell you. And I'm pretty sure I've listened to this where they tell you, like, a big part of it should be supporting other reps and commenting on their stuff and making sure you're sharing them, and really enforcing that sisterhood. And again, to me, that is, everyone's searching for that, but that is the number one places where cults will get you. When you're really looking for that connection, you're looking for that purpose, you're looking to get that something special, because you deserve that, and everyone deserves that. They feel like they should get that, but
Yeah.
it's not always that easy. Like, sometimes you really have to climb a mountain to get to your purpose, or you really have to go through the shadow work and the uncomfortable and being like at your worst to see where you could be at your best. And they don't teach that. They're just like, always
Mm-mm.
be your best, and if not, shut up and nut up. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
no. Like, I want to have a down day. If I have a mental health day at work, I could call in and be like, I mean, you have a certain amount, I'm having a mental health day, I'm not coming in. That is not going to affect my paycheck at all. But if you guys, or not you guys, but MLMs, in a sense, stop to get sick, like, you're really, again, then missing some trends, missing what's coming out next. And I think that's what pushes people to constantly always be on their phones and plugged into the groups and the lives. And like you said, it takes away from real life. It takes
Mm-hmm.
away from other dreams you might have. Like you said, you were trying to go to school and you were, so busy, caught up with this, that you didn't get to give that 100%. And who knows, maybe that was just a stupid school, and no one could get past the C. But you didn't get a chance to know that because
Yeah.
they just made you believe that that was worthless, almost like that probably wasn't
Yeah.
worth much of your time, because you're just going to be a success in this anyway. So school is kind of irrelevant,
Right.
I would imagine.
My school was worth being like, oh, look at her, she's smart and she's doing this. Like, that's, they use that. They look
Yeah.
for your credentials, and they look for things that they can exploit, because cults like productive members. Like, they're looking for people that they can use. But I do regret that. I do regret not focusing a little bit harder on school. I left school, I finished my degree and decided to keep bartending and build my network marketing business instead of doing whatever else. And I didn't know what I wanted to do, which is another thing. I feel like they, kind of, if they don't know, here's a great idea, like, just do this.
Yeah. Oh, you're just waiting for this. You're like, fuck, open the door there. But
I regret
yes,
that.
fair.
Yeah.
That's fair.
My focus wasn't where it should have been, and I'm like, dang, sometimes I get the feeling of like wanting to go back and do a master's or do something. And I know part of that is stemming from me feeling like I didn't
Complete it.
Yeah, I didn't give my actual like, I worked so hard to get myself back in school, back to a university, and then I don't feel like I gave it what I
100%.
should have. Yeah, when I was there.
Yeah, that's totally fair. That's fair. But good for you for recognizing that, because so many people can. And like, we're all going to make stupid like mistakes or thoughts where it's like, I should have probably not bought that, or, I maybe shouldn't have done those things. And I think that's how you learn. And as long as you can admit that, that's the beauty of it. It's like, okay. And that's when you start sharing it, right? And sharing it to other people, not into the sense to stop them, because most people have to experience shit for themselves. Nobody listens. I don't listen. I got to go through it. I like the hard way. Like, you say these things, but I needed to like break my heart for me to understand. And it's, we can't protect everyone from going through every bad experience. Right. However, there's a difference of just warning and being like, you're being informed that, hey, you might be sold a lie. So when you come up to that moment in your life and you're in an MLM and you are like, I'm working hard, like us boss bitches, we work hard. No one that knows me doesn't say that I'm a hard worker. And you're like, it's me. Like, we're just saying, it's not you. I just want women. Yeah, I just want women to know that. Like, that's great if you want to go in and you generally want to help people and you want to share your products. Like, I fully understand that. As long as you know that, as long as you don't buy into those things and you know that if it's not working, it's not you. And so I think women just like get deeper inside. Like you said, they get shamed. All these people around them, they're being successful, quote unquote, but you're so busy. Do you even meet these people in real life to see if that's really their lives? Like, there's so many false narratives that get made in that industry from what people say or see. I think it's just very dangerous. It's not very much rooted in reality. And there's a lot of this grandeur, right? And I think that to me is the most predatory and danger. If everyone was like, hey, you can sell some products, you're probably, and well, they can't say like you'll make more money on recruiting because that's illegal, because that is a pyramid scheme, right? But like, like if they're just like, it's like you can sell products, but you're probably not going to make too much. Just straight up, you'll get a discount. Like, if people said that and like, sign me up, cool. But it's the other part. It's the other part that they take you and they make you believe that you need to then be a salesperson. And then they make you believe that you have to be successful at this or you're going to be nothing. And it's like, maybe it's just not for me. Like when people ask me, I'd be like, it's just not for me, man. Like people would see me teaching classes and be like, Beachbody was the worst.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I see your fitness journey. It wouldn't be that hard to just sell this. No, it would be. I'm busy. I don't have time for this. And like, I'm not going to sit here and say that it was Beachbody that got me to here because it didn't. And the fact that you want me to do that is a huge red flag to me because now I'm just like, what is your actual even marketing? Because it's not based in my real experiences. So like, what are you doing? And then I took like a boot camp course, like to teach boot camp. And I still didn't feel comfortable teaching boot camps. And here's these girls that just sign up for Beachbody and they're like, come join me in the park for a boot camp. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Do you know how dangerous that is? You can seriously injure people when you don't know what you're doing. Even I took like a course and I still didn't think it was enough. I'm like, what? You're going to certify me after this? That's it? Like, I don't feel comfortable teaching like dance, whatever. Dance is dancing. I'm not too worried about that. But after I was like, and then I seen Beachbody do it. I'm like, this is very dangerous. And Beachbody was my very first MLM that I fully understood what was going on there. I was like, wow, you guys are, and I did it. I bought all the tapes. What was her name? Shailene Johnson. I don't think she's still a part of it.
She definitely is on a lot of those coaches that'll she'll be the expert that is put up.
Yeah. I don't love it. I try. I see she pops up sometimes. I'm like, oh, but I used to love her videos. I think that's a big part of how I got started because I started working out at home and I built confidence. So like, I do see a lot of value in a lot of the products and the services that are out there. And so many people get upset because they won't hear past that you say like, but there's predatory nature. And they don't hear that you say like, yeah, I'm sure there's great products. I'm sure there's great services, but that's not what anybody's beefing about here. It's how the model is set up.
Yeah. And the thing is I don't debate a pro MLMer because it only makes them more entrenched in their own views. And I try to come from the place of everybody in an MLM is a victim, aside from the people that start them. Some people are victims, but they're also the predators. But a lot of people are just victims and they don't realize what's going on because they are brainwashed. So I try to come from that perspective, but that's why I also don't argue with them because your critical thinking is so dulled by being in this weird trauma bonding relationship with this company that you literally can't think logically about the opportunity. You just can't. Your brain, those two pieces of your brain do not connect. And that's why it's like I try to like say something that would make somebody think, but like I can't like argue with them about it because it's just not going to go anywhere, and it just doesn't make their arguments don't really make any sense either. Like they don't really have. If I say, hey, the problem's not the shape, it's the flow of money, like they'll come back at me with something that is completely irrelevant to the point at hand. They're not actually having a conversation about it.
No, it's surface level again, because it's copy and paste, because if you truly believe it, you should be able to like argue it, but lack a better word, like argue it or like prove your point. But it's like when you go back to these talking points, to me, that means that you don't actually know what you're talking about. And you're just a kind of like channel of what these guys are saying. You don't actually fully believe that. You're just saying words, but there's no substance to them. So it's like you said, it's like there's no point, but it is nice to plant the seed because like you said, now you got to reconnect with your best friend after that. Was like, you're a part of pyramid scheme. Like, she figured it out and it's so great. Amazing. You got to reconnect. I think that happens, right? Like I said, your people will be your people, and I always believe, like I used to take it really personally when people would like phase out of my life, but then you phase back in and it's like nothing happened. You're like, oh, we're just going through a thing in our life. So now I'm like, if I lose touch with someone, I'm like, they'll come back if they're meant to. And if not, like, I just hope I had a good impact, or, at least we learned something from each other. And it's great that you can laugh about it now. And you probably, it's a good opportunity. She probably tries to poke and grill you a little bit once in a while. You do it to yourself, right?
Yeah,
like,
and I have
just
to
message her like, hey, hun,
No, totally. 100%. Like my boyfriend, he hey huns me all the time. And it's just so funny.
So good. I think that was my favorite thing that I learned when I jumped into anti-MLM was when people were calling them hun bots. It just had me, it's probably old now, but it just had me in stitches because I was like, that is exactly at that time, like
so
4
accurate.
years ago, it was really bad. Like I know now you can hear them being like, don't copy and paste messages. Like it still happens, but they're like I said, they're evolving and it evolves. And so this is where I don't believe that it's true, because it involves its manipulation to what the trends are and
Mm-hmm.
what's cool. And they make you believe that you have to fall into it. Like I'm sure now the big push is being on TikTok and having all these TikToks and TikTok everything. Well, motherfuckers, it takes a lot of time to make TikToks and they're hard when you're old. So, like it's just not a thing. So it's like, I feel like, again, they set all these crazy standards that no regular individual should have to try and achieve to be successful in a business. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Like my online presence does not affect my job. And that makes me feel so good, because if I don't want to jump on social media for that day, I don't have to. I could
Yeah.
just not,
Yeah.
but, and you get that with small business too. Don't get me wrong. But like, I just feel like you just have to be more present because of the oversaturation of so many different ones now. Back in the day when it was like Mary Kay and Avon, like, man, I was an Avon rep. I fucking love Avon. I wish it was like old school Avon stuff, like their Christmas catalog and like their bubble baths. And like, it was the same thing. I got it because I wanted to get the products for cheap. And so I just signed up. You didn't have any requirements back in the day. Like you didn't have to buy anything. I think within 3 months you had to make like one purchase, which was fine. Cause I was like, that's not bad. Like there's always something in Avon that I would have. And then I would just bring my catalog and I just put the date on the sticky note. That's when I was ordering. And then people would let me know. I never chased anybody. I never went, I'm putting in an order. Like I never guilted anybody to do any of those things. And that's where my beef is like, oh, you're not supporting a young mom. You're not, and then there was like this whole hype of, remember all the MLM parties. I don't know if you guys went through a phase, but here in Canada, I swear to God, there was like a phase of 2 years where everyone just kept going to each other's parties so that we could all support each other. And the amount of money that was spent, I still have fucking Scentsy
Oh,
candles from like 8 years ago that I have yet to use to this day, and no idea where my Tupperware, whatever that one was, like, it's just, it makes me think of all the money that I spent on things that I didn't need to support my friends when we were all just supporting each other and buying stuff we didn't actually need. And it,
Mhm.
like, again, I lived in Grand Prairie, Alberta, so it's very much keep up with the Joneses, because it's very much like rich oil money. And it's scary. It's scary what it is. That's where I've seen it the most. I was like, why are we doing this every weekend?
Yeah.
Why do we have to have Epicure every fucking month? I'm still sitting on spices from 8 years ago. Like, it's nothing bad and people should have businesses, but it's the guilt that you have to participate or you're
Right.
not a supportive friend
Right.
that I struggle with. Because like, I never went to people when I had a photography business and was like, you didn't hire me for photos, so you're not supporting me. Like, I never
Exactly.
did that. I never did that. I never would do that. Like that part blew my mind. I'm like, okay, I can't
Yeah.
afford it. Do you want me to be honest? Like, I can't afford all these fucking candles. Brenda, leave me alone. Just kidding. I don't know Brenda.
But you're
Sorry,
making
Brenda.
a good point though. Like the other big red flag with an MLM is the products can be great. Like I loved the trips, I will I will not deny that some MLMs have great products.
Totally.
But the products are primarily being sold within the closed system. So the people that are buying them are mostly reps. Um, and then they're friends and family too, but like I would still argue that the friends and family are still part of the closed system, because the friends and family aren't buying it because they have a real need. They're buying it because they're being guilted usually into buying it. So I still think it's with it because it's not reflecting a real demand in the marketplace for the actual product. And so that's exactly
Good
what
point.
it is. It's just obligations of, let me support my friend, but you're really not buying it because you need it. It's sitting in your house 8 years later.
Yeah. Well, and then it kind of builds animosity when people just don't stop, right? It's like you say yes once, and so they're always coming back. And if you're a person that can't say no, and you truly want to support, and you don't know any of those things, and you're thinking, absolutely, if I buy this $50, she gets the $50. Probably not, because she probably bought it for $45 or even $40. So you got $10 profit on that. And then are we again minusing all the time that's spent on social media, that making these reels, making this, talking to people, messaging, like time is valuable. So to me, it's like, if you want to know if you're successful in your MLM, I would, like you said, profit and loss, see what that looks like. Then whatever your profit is, then divide that.
Yeah.
Track your hours, and then find out, and then come talk to me about how much you make an hour if my corporate job is less than yours. Just kidding. But this is where I kind of struggle. And it's like, okay, well, I have benefits. So I need a crown. I can go get one because I have benefits. I got to go toothache. I can go get that. Do MLMs offer benefits? I don't know. Probably not. I get paid vacation, 3 weeks a year, paid vacation. I can disconnect. I mean, kind of in a like very busy position right now. So this last summer when I didn't really as much my choice, but my company will allow me to take my time paid to enjoy my time. If I have a mental health day, like I said, I could stay at home if, you know, like it's just this, what beefs me is a continual hate to women that work in corporate or something different, and that you should just drop that and it's not important and it's not cool and you're not like empowered woman if you just work for the man. And it's like, okay, but again, the company that you work for has a corporation just like the one I work in,
and it's
that
probably run by a man.
And it probably is, right? Like, and like it's, and then this is where I talk about like I found the last episode about the beauty industry. It's like we get mad about the patriarchy setting these standards, but we're the motherfuckers going in and doing this shit. So if we just stop doing this shit, they crumble. So stop. Like Victoria's Secret is owned by the biggest pervert on planet Earth almost. Like
God.
we won't even go there, but that goes back to like Kinsey and like John Money. Like there's perverts everywhere. Anyways, but just before we jump, this has been absolutely amazing. I knew I was like, oh my God, we're going to hit 3 hours, but I don't think either of us could probably handle that. But before we jump off, is there any advice that you have for those that are maybe thinking about, okay, going into one, what they should do besides not, but like, what should they really look for? And two, if they are wanting to get out, what are your suggestions or advice on leaving an MLM?
Yeah, those are great questions. Okay, so for somebody who's thinking about joining, first I would say there's hardly any true urgency in this world. Like hardly anything is really truly urgent where you have to make a decision right now about it. MLMs will manufacture a shitload of urgency to get you to make a decision. So if you can just take a couple days and let your emotions de-escalate and kind of have like a logical time with yourself to see if this is really good for your bigger picture and your life. And hopefully if they haven't talked you out of talking to other people about it yet, run it by some of your trusted friends and family, because they're your trusted friends and family for a reason. And anything that, anything legit should stand up to scrutiny. You know what I mean? Yeah. And anything legit should be able to withstand you waiting a couple of days. Red flags to look out for. I mean, definitely keep track of what you're making, what you're spending, and you know what you're doing, what you're being asked to do that, you know, doesn't really align with who you are as a person. Like definitely take note of that. You know, don't do anything that doesn't feel right to you. And you know, some people just have to jump in and experience it for themselves and cool. But like that's what the profit and loss is good for, because check in with yourself 6 months from now, 3 months from now, a year from now, and see if it's really worth all of your money. And then also all of your time. Like you said, like how much time did you spend on this? If you're spending 20 hours a week, 40 hours a week, 2 hours a week, that's a huge difference, you know? And so, yeah, that's what I would tell to people that are thinking about joining. And then
numbers
also,
don't lie. Numbers don't lie. Like that's like people can lie. People's intentions can be in a shit place, but you get numbers. Like, you know, I'm inventory at my job. That's what I do. I balance numbers all the time.
Yeah.
And like, they don't lie to you, right? Like someone could say, oh, I made this much. I'm like, but this is how much is here. So you might have had intention to make this much, but this is what the actual numbers are telling me, right? Like people have, and people are selling you something. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter how good of friends they are. Everyone is in a business at some point, and that's okay. But we have to know what people's intentions are, right? Yeah. So it's like, profit and loss, and what are your hours? And I think, again, even just the profit and loss isn't enough. Take that profit, divide it by how many hours you're actually putting in there. Because like you said, 20 hours and you're making $1,000 in a month, you know, 20 hours towards that is a lot different than 20 hours a week. Then your, you know, hours go down. So it's like, you got to weigh that out. But because it's like almost like, oh, but it's just fun. It's just posting. It's just social media. You're already talking to people anyways. Like you're already out here promoting. It's like, but you don't understand that I don't have to, and I do it for fun. So if I don't feel like being on social media for a week, I don't have to. But if I was part of MLM, I'd have to. So like, no, it's not the same. It's not just, oh, I'm promoting and I'm sharing. Like that's what they say. Oh, well, you're already posting about fitness. Yeah. So that people come to my physical classes, not so that they could buy Beachbody, because I can actually control them coming to my class and having a good time. I cannot control what's going to happen with this Beachbody shake. Like you don't fuck off. Anyways. Yeah. And for those that want to leave.
Well, and even to add on to that, like, if you're going to make any life decision, you're going to look at the pros and the cons, right? Like just make sure that you do that for this as well. Like don't just look at the good side, you know, of things.
Yes, yeah.
But yeah, and then for the people that are leaving, I would definitely say, if you're even watching or listening to something like this, you're on the right track because you're even allowing yourself to consume outside information. And the biggest thing here is re-empowering yourself to think critically for yourself. So this is the complete opposite of network marketing where you're told who to listen to and what information to consume. I would say go out there and consume it all. Go see what I have to say. Go see what everyone else has to say. Go see what the FTC has to say. Go see what the lawsuits have to say. Like just go consume information. There's lots of great books out there. Ponzi-nomics by Robert Fitzpatrick is a great one. I just finished Terror, Love, and Brainwashing, which is another really good one. There's tons of books out there about cults, about MLMs, pyramid schemes. Like just do your own research, like however you want. And then don't tell your upline that you're leaving. You could just email in and quit. Go. Yeah. That's the best way to do it. That's all you got to do.
Because you're just, especially at a vulnerable part. And they know, and I'm sure you guys have been trained or they've been trained to know what to say when people are quitting and how to rope them back in because they remember your whys. They know your kids. They know all your insecurities because this is your sisterhood. So you're going to tell them all of those things, right? So I have a group of girlfriends and we all like say all of our insecurities, but not once have they ever thrown that back on me. If anything, they're like, girl, you're crazy. Like, you know, like, and that's once you actually have a good group of supporting friends after you've kind of fell into that you really realize how you really sold yourself short on what requirement is for friendship. And then you realize, and that's the most painful part is that it was surface level and it was just business. And if I had known that going in, that we're all like, when I go to work, I know that the people that I work with, like, sure, maybe we might hit it off after work, but that's it. We're coworkers. Like there's no requirement to be friends outside of that whatsoever. If we do, great. But like I spend 40 hours a week with these individuals. I spend lots of time. I don't have to, but you know, that's where it's a little bit different, you know, like the minute that business stops, your friendship stops and that hurts. Cause it's like, I thought we were friends. I thought we were bonding over infertility or cannabis or whatever, right? Like you really got me there, right? Like you really see my advocacy and you use that. Same with you. Oh, she's in mental health and she's a smart girl. Yeah, that just you're a walking money sign, right? And it's like sad because you're so much more than that. And that's what I want women to know is that you're so much more than what you're making. You're so much more than this like business. You're so much more than what these people are telling that you are. And my biggest suggestion, I think, is the same thing. Like listen to people outside of it. If you're going to sign up for one, do yourself a favor and go put an anti-MLM dash whatever company it is that you're looking for. Because you don't think I didn't go look for anti-MLM Amar. You guys are fucking crazy. I also look for Wellness Box. I also look for what are the last one that came out recently? Anyone that come out, I will go and look. And actually, the one person that I used to absolutely love for MLM stuff was Illuminati. And then shit kind of fell with her. And that was a very sad one to watch fall because I was like, oh, of course you're too good to be true. But there's so much content out there from girls that have been a part of it. Like I would obviously suggest Kalika, obviously, because I like bond with her. But like I said, I found like Kiki Chanel, like she just, I love how she like presents her videos, very well edited, you know. And I think there's another one. There's tons. There's been people that go in and out, but
like Cece Swore, Cece Swore is hilarious. I think she's so funny.
So funny. And she does lives too, right? So she like you just get to know her too on a personal level, which I love, right? So and they're strong bitches. Like they're like, this is how I feel, and I'm not gonna have you internet trolls stop me from my advocacy because this is what bothers me. It's like when you become an advocate, it's because we care about people. But then you're being told you don't care about those people. And that couldn't be further from the truth for anything and across all topics. I just like to point out flags and, like you said, put pins. Because eventually there's going to be so many pins from different people, you're not going to be able to not hear it anymore.
And like, once you see it, you can't not see it. Yeah.
And then you're like, oh. And then you see it in other places, you're like, shit. Like you said, with the Go Team Academy, I was like, oh. Yeah. Oh, like it was great. I will never take it back. Best thing that ever happened to me. But I was like, I really put said individuals on this pedestal and I would rip apart anybody that had anything to do against them. And I'm like, I'm in a cult. I can't hear anything that's opposite to, you know, and like if that company can't say, hey, you know what, I'm sure people have reacted and I'm sure like it's not for everybody. If that individual can't even admit that everyone's different, red flag, run away, you know, like toxic positivity, run.
Yeah, you have to be able to see the whole picture. And that's why anti-MLM even exists. Like, I'm never denying that good things didn't come out of
course.
my involvement with
All of it.
that. But
Yeah.
the other point I wanted to make too about people,
course.
because I'm sure somebody's going to listen to this and has already been in an MLM and didn't really deconstruct their experience from it. And the one thing that I will say is that
Fair.
you don't have to do a ton of research. You don't have to do anything crazy. You don't have to go to school. You don't have to get a degree, nothing like that. But it just a little bit of deconstructing work from that experience will help you a ton in just protecting yourself from not falling victim to similar things in the future, because social media is a changing landscape. There's always a new grift. It's always going to look slightly different, but if you're like aware of what to look out for, and a lot of people are like, oh, I never really even processed my MLM experience. And then when you don't is when you could be sucked into something. So that's why it's like, for the person that heard this and is like, oh crap, I didn't really think this through all the way, like, just watch a couple anti-MLM videos. They're super entertaining, and just do a little bit of work and you'll be good. But then at least you'll know what to look out for.
Yes. And that's what I mean. And if you want to go in after that and you're like, you know what? I know this, but I really believe this and I want to do it, then fucking go, sister. Like, I'm all for that. I want people to have informed consent, because, you know, there's even like that Vice documentary, was it LuLaRoe, LuLaRoe? Those leggings or whatever, you know, that was like one of the very first like actual like mainstream documentaries that came out. I was like, this is so awesome.
Good
Why
to watch.
Isn't there more? It was, because it was like, you know, in Vice, everyone can have different opinions, but I always think it's important to just consume. You can take away what you like and what you don't, but if you just put yourself in an echo chamber, that is literally what you're going to get. And I don't feel like you grow in an echo chamber. I might not love other people's opinions, but I'll always be like, oh, fuck. Okay, what did they say? And I'll be like, and then I'll be like, okay, yeah, I kind of see, you know, and maybe I change my mind, maybe I don't. But if I'm just going to go la 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 to everything that I don't believe, I'm just not a real human, I think.
Right. You're not.
You know, you're not. And you have to go through uncomfortable, and you have to go through bad. You can't protect everyone for it, but you can, like you said, I don't think everyone that has, for example, like breast implants has breast implant illness. However, there's a lot of women that are sick that have no idea that that exists. So then if they know that it exists, then at least it's on the table for an option instead of just sitting here, you know, and not saying anything. Same with MLMs. If you think that yours isn't and everything we said is stupid, that's fine. But maybe in a couple of years, you're like, hey, like the girl said, I haven't made any money and now I'm in debt. Like, shit. Now you're like, okay, I have it. I don't need any more confirmation. Like you said, you knew, but you kept going because you have faith. You want people to be good. You want this to be a great thing. You hope that this was the opportunity you were always looking for, and they use that. And I hate that. And then it just, I don't love it. Anyways, this has been so good. Do you have anything else to add that you want to add? I love it. Good conversation.
Yeah, it was awesome. I think we touched on a lot of stuff, and it was just such a great conversation, and especially because you've had some experience too. You can kind of like bounce back and forth with me, so that's awesome.
Yes. So thank you guys. And I feel like this is like our first, but I definitely want to continue doing this because again, there's so much more to this, but I feel like you said, we hit all the top topics. And guys, go to her YouTube channel. I will link it and share that when this episode launches, of course, because then there's lots of different breakdowns where, you know, like she analyzes different pieces. Like I said, the last one that I watched was like maybe a 12-minute video of like how people can be susceptible and the certain people, because I seen a comment where most people think like, oh, just like stupid people can get, no. Look at Scientology. They've had these like most cults get the smartest individuals because they truly are looking for a higher purpose. They want to do good. They want to do those things, and they're easily manipulated too. Like that's a human function. That's not a smart person or stupid person label, right? So that video, I was like, this is so good. So I want to leave that up to the professionals, but I will want to have and voice this and having Being Reals with, hopefully we'll get you back and see how your channel does over the next couple months, right? And see where your business is. That'd be so fun. But guys, follow. You can learn all from her. If not, always follow us. We love you guys. Thank you so much for showing up and listening. Love you all. Thank you, Kalika.
And thank you for having me.